3 days after burying her father, Selena Moretti is kidnapped from the cemetery and forced to marry America's most dangerous crime boss, a man who has been secretly watching her for years. Her wedding dress is still stained with blood. Marriage is a debt to be paid. But amidst the obsession, violence, and power, a dark love begins to blossom. A love that could destroy both of them. Watch until the end to see if Selena will choose freedom or the monster who has taken her prisoner. Don't forget to like and comment where you're watching to let me know how far this story has progressed. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday afternoon, turning the cemetery into a wasteland of mud and broken stone. Selena Moretti stood at the edge of her father's grave, black dress clinging to her skin, mascara streaking down her cheeks in rivers she didn't bother to wipe away. The priest had left 20 minutes ago. The mourners, what few there were, had scattered even before that, umbrellas blooming like dark flowers as they fled toward their cars. She was alone now, just her and the rain and the hole in the ground that held what was left of Vincent Moretti, a man who'd raised her on frozen dinners and broken promises, who'd kissed her forehead every night until she turned 12 and then stopped touching her altogether, who died 3 days ago in a car accident that the police said was caused by brake failure, but Selena knew, she knew, was something else entirely. Her father had been terrified those last few weeks, jumpy, paranoid. He'd started drinking again after 5 years sober, would pace the apartment at 3 in the morning, muttering about debts and deadlines and men in black cars who followed him to work. Selena had thought he was losing his mind. Now she wondered if he'd simply been losing his life. She knelt in the mud, not caring that it soaked through her dress, and pressed her palm against the fresh earth. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," she whispered. The rain swallowed her words. "I'm sorry I thought you were crazy." The wind picked up, howling through the cemetery like something wounded and furious. Selena shivered. She should leave, should go back to the apartment and pack up his things and figure out how to pay for a funeral she couldn't afford. Should start making phone calls to his creditors and his landlord and his... Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Selena's head snapped up. 3 men emerged from between the headstones, moving toward her with the kind of synchronized precision that made her stomach drop. They wore black suits despite the rain, expensive fabric that probably cost more than her rent. No umbrellas. They didn't need them. They moved like the weather was an inconvenience they'd simply decided not to acknowledge. The one in front was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running down the left side of his face from temple to jaw. He stopped 5 feet from where Selena knelt and looked down at her with eyes that held all the warmth of a frozen lake. "Selena Moretti," he said. Not a question. She stood slowly, mud sliding down her legs. "Who are you?" "You need to come with us." "Like hell I do." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I don't know you." The man's expression didn't change. "Your father owed a debt. That debt is now yours." Selena's heart kicked against her ribs. "What debt? What are you talking about?" $300,000. He said it like he was discussing the weather. Plus interest. Accumulated over the past 8 years. The number hit her like a fist to the stomach. 300,000. She didn't have $300. "That's impossible. My father didn't have that kind of money. He could barely pay rent." "Which is why he borrowed it." "From who?" The man smiled, and it was the worst thing Selena had ever seen. "From people you don't want to disappoint." She took a step back. Her heel caught on a stone and she stumbled, catching herself against a headstone. The marble was slick with rain and moss. "I can't pay that. I don't have anything." "We know." "Then why are you here?" "Because the debt still needs to be settled." He gestured to the 2 men flanking him. They moved forward. "And you're going to settle it." Selena ran. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just spun on her heel and bolted through the cemetery, dress tangling around her legs, shoes sliding in the mud. Behind her, she heard shouting, the sound of footsteps pounding after her. But she didn't look back. Couldn't look back, just focused on the iron gate at the cemetery entrance 200 yards away. She made it 30 yards before someone tackled her. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She hit the ground face first, mud filling her mouth, and then rough hands were hauling her up, spinning her around. The scarred man loomed over her, not even breathing hard. "That was stupid," he said. Selena spat mud and blood. "Fuck you." He backhanded her across the face. The world tilted. Pain exploded through her skull, bright and sharp, and she tasted copper. Someone grabbed her arms, wrenching them behind her back, and she felt the cold bite of plastic zip ties cinching tight around her wrists. "Let me go!" She thrashed, kicking out blindly, and felt her foot connect with something solid. Someone swore. The grip on her arms tightened until she thought her shoulders would dislocate. "Sedate her," the scarred man said. "No, wait." Selena tried to twist away, but there were too many hands, too strong. And then she felt the sharp sting of a needle sliding into her neck. The world started to blur immediately. She tried to fight it, tried to stay conscious, but the drug pulled her down like a riptide. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the scarred man's face, expressionless as stone, and the last thing she thought was that her father had been right to be terrified. She should have listened. Selena woke up in a moving vehicle. Her head felt like it had been stuffed with cotton and crushed glass. Every time she tried to open her eyes, the world swam sideways, so she kept them shut and focused on breathing through her nose, trying not to vomit. She was lying on her side on what felt like a leather seat. Her wrists were still bound. Her face throbbed where the man had hit her, a deep ache that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Voices filtered through the fog in her brain. Male. Speaking in low tones she couldn't quite make out. "Sure Vale wants her this way?" He said to bring her, didn't specify the condition. A pause. "She's got some fight in her." "Won't matter. Vale will break her in a week." Laughter, dark, ugly. Selena's stomach turned over. She swallowed hard, fighting down the nausea, and tried to piece together what was happening. They'd taken her from the cemetery. They'd drugged her. They were taking her to someone named Vale. The name rang a bell, distant and ominous, like thunder on the horizon. Damian Vale. She'd heard her father mention that name exactly once, 2 weeks before he died. He'd been drunk, pacing the apartment, and he'd said it like a curse. "Damian fucking Vale is going to kill me. I should never have. I can't. He'll." Selena had asked him what he meant, who Vale was, but her father had just looked at her with eyes full of something that might have been regret or terror, or both, and said, "Stay away from dangerous men, Selena. Promise me." She'd promised. And now she was being delivered to one. The vehicle slowed, then stopped. Doors opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of pine and wet earth. Hands grabbed her, hauled her upright, and she forced her eyes open despite the way the world spun. They were in the mountains. Forests surrounded them, dense and dark, trees towering overhead like silent sentinels. The road behind them was unpaved, barely more than a dirt track cutting through the wilderness. Ahead, through the trees, Selena could see the outline of a building. Stone, old, covered in moss and shadow. It looked like something out of a nightmare. "Move!" Someone shoved her forward. She stumbled, nearly fell, caught herself at the last second. Her legs felt like jelly, but she forced them to work, forced herself to walk toward the building even as every instinct screamed at her to run. There was nowhere to run to. They were miles from anything resembling civilization. The building resolved itself as they got closer. Not a house. Something older. Stone walls thick enough to withstand a siege, narrow windows like watching eyes, a heavy wooden door bound with iron. A chapel. They were taking her to a chapel in the middle of nowhere. Selena's breath started coming faster. "Where are we? What is this?" No one answered. The scarred man pulled open the door and pushed her inside. The interior was dim, lit by candles that cast flickering shadows across stone walls. Wooden pews lined either side of a narrow aisle. At the far end, where an altar should have been, stood a man. Even at a distance, even in the uncertain light, Selena could tell he was dangerous. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been handsome if it weren't so utterly cold. He wore a black suit that fit him like a weapon, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than every piece of clothing Selena had ever owned combined. His hands were clasped behind his back. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at something on the floor in front of him, something Selena couldn't see from where she stood. "Bring her here," he said. His voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that made you lean in to listen and then regret it. The scarred man grabbed Selena's arm and marched her down the aisle. Her shoes, she was still wearing the black heels from the funeral, clicked against the stone floor, the sound obscenely loud in the silence. As they got closer, Selena saw what the man had been looking at. A wedding dress. It was laid out on a table like a corpse, white silk and lace, beautiful and terrible. The skirt was torn. The bodice was stained with something dark that could have been wine, but Selena knew, with a certainty that made her want to scream, was blood. "Put her in it," the man said without looking up. "What?" Selena's voice cracked. No, I'm not." The scarred man's grip tightened on her arm, cutting off circulation. Another set of hands grabbed her from behind. They dragged her toward a doorway off to the side, into a small room that might once have been used for storage. Selena fought. She twisted and kicked and screamed, but the drug was still in her system, making her sluggish, making her weak. They cut the zip ties off her wrists, and before she could take advantage of the freedom they were tearing at her dress, ripping the black fabric away, leaving her standing in her undergarments, shaking with cold and terror. Someone thrust the wedding dress at her. "Put it on." "Fuck you." The scarred man pulled a knife from his belt. It was a simple gesture, almost casual, but the message was clear. "Put it on, or we'll put it on you." Selena's hands shook as she took the dress. It was heavier than she expected, the silk thick and luxurious. The bloodstains were old, brown and stiff. They covered the front of the bodice, spattering across the white fabric like some kind of grotesque art. She wanted to ask whose blood it was, wanted to ask what kind of monster would make her wear this. But her throat had closed up, wouldn't let the words out, so she just pulled the dress on, fingers fumbling with the zipper, with the tiny buttons running up the back. When it was done, when she was standing there in a blood-stained wedding dress with mud still caked in her hair and bruises forming on her face, they marched her back out into the chapel. The man was waiting. He'd turned to face the aisle now, and for the first time Selena got a good look at him. Damian Vale was maybe 35, maybe older. It was hard to tell. His face was all sharp angles and hard lines, like something carved from marble and left out in the cold. Dark eyes, nearly black, tracked her approach with an intensity that made her skin crawl. There was no emotion in those eyes, no warmth, just a kind of focused attention that felt like being dissected. When she was 5 feet away, he held up a hand. The scarred man stopped pushing her forward. Damian studied her for a long moment. Selena stared back, refusing to look away, even though every nerve in her body was screaming at her to run. "You're shorter than I expected," Damian said finally. Selena blinked. Of all the things she'd thought he might say, that wasn't on the list. "What?" "Your father said you were 5'7". You're maybe 5'5". "My father is dead." "I know. I had his brakes cut." The world stopped. Selena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The words hung in the air between them, casual and devastating, and she felt something inside her chest crack wide open. "You—" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You killed him." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he was an idiot who thought he could cheat me." Damian took a step closer. "And because I needed you isolated, vulnerable. Your father alive was a complication. Your father dead was an opportunity." Selena lunged at him. She didn't make it 2 steps before the scarred man caught her, yanking her back. But in that moment, she didn't care about the consequences, didn't care about anything except the white-hot rage burning through her veins. She wanted to hurt him, wanted to claw his eyes out, wanted to make him feel even a fraction of the pain tearing through her. Damian didn't even flinch. He just stood there, watching her struggle, expression unchanging. "Get it out of your system," he said calmly. "You'll feel better." "I'll feel better when you're dead." "Noted." He gestured to the scarred man. "Bring her forward." They dragged her the rest of the way down the aisle, forced her to stand directly in front of Damian. This close, she could see the fine details. The faint scar along his jawline, the way his shirt collar sat perfectly pressed despite the humidity, the absolute absence of anything resembling doubt in his eyes. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked. Selena spat at him. The spit hit his cheek, a small defiant gesture that felt pathetically inadequate but was all she had. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Damian's face. Not anger, something else, something that might have been surprise or amusement or approval. He wiped the spit away with one hand, slowly, deliberately. Then he leaned in close enough that Selena could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark, cedar and smoke. "You're here," he said quietly, "because I own you now. Your father's debt is yours. $300,000 plus interest plus penalties for late payment. Total comes to roughly $800,000. You can't pay that. You'll never be able to pay that, so the debt gets settled another way." "What way?" "Marriage." The word hit her like a physical blow. "You're insane." "I'm practical." Damian straightened, putting distance between them again. "You marry me. The debt is forgiven. You get to live. It's a generous offer, considering." "Considering what? That you murdered my father?" "Considering I could have just killed you too." Selena felt the blood drain from her face. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather, like murder was just another item on his to-do list. "This isn't legal," she said, hating how her voice shook. "You can't force someone to marry you." "I can do whatever I want." Damian turned away, walking toward a small table set up near the altar. There was a folder on it, papers stacked neatly inside. He picked it up, flipped it open. "Marriage certificate. Already filled out. Needs your signature." "I'm not signing anything." "Yes, you are." "Make me." Damian looked at her, and for the first time something like emotion flickered in his eyes. Not anger, though. Something colder. More patient. "Marcus," he said without looking away from Selena, "bring me the pliers." The scarred man, Marcus, moved toward another table Selena hadn't noticed before. There was a metal case on it. He opened it. Inside were tools, medical tools, torture tools. Marcus picked up a pair of pliers and walked back over, holding them out to Damian. Selena's heart stopped. "Here's how this works," Damian said conversationally, taking the pliers. "I'm going to ask you to sign the papers. If you refuse, I'm going to break one of your fingers. Then I'll ask again. If you still refuse, I'll break another finger. We'll continue this pattern until either you sign or you run out of fingers. Then we'll move to toes, then teeth. Are we clear?" Selena couldn't speak, couldn't move. Terror had frozen her in place. Damian walked toward her, stopped inches away, reached out and took her left hand in his. His grip was firm but not painful, almost gentle. That somehow made it worse. "Last chance," he said quietly. "Sign the papers." Selena looked into his eyes and saw nothing human looking back, just emptiness, just the cold, calculated certainty of someone who'd done this before and would do it again without hesitation. She thought about her father, about the fear in his eyes those last few weeks, about how he'd tried to warn her and she hadn't listened. She thought about fighting back, about refusing, about making him break every bone in her body before she gave in. But in the end, survival won out over pride. "I'll sign," she whispered. Damian released her hand. "Good choice." The ceremony lasted less than 5 minutes. There was no officiant, no witnesses, except for Marcus and the other 2 men who'd kidnapped her. Damian spoke words that might have been vows or might have been threats. Selena couldn't focus enough to tell the difference. She stood there in her blood-stained dress, shaking so hard her teeth chattered, and signed where he told her to sign. When it was done, Damian took the papers, folded them carefully, and tucked them inside his jacket. "You're my wife now," he said. Not with triumph or satisfaction, just stating a fact. Selena said nothing. She'd used up all her words, all her fight. There was nothing left inside her except a hollow, aching numbness. Damian studied her for a moment longer, then turned to Marcus. "Take her to the car. We're leaving." "The estate?" "Yes." Marcus grabbed Selena's arm again, started pulling her back down the aisle. She let him, didn't resist. What was the point? They were halfway to the door when Damian called out, "Selena?" She stopped, turned. He was standing by the altar, hands in his pockets, looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Welcome to the family," he said. "Months." The drive took 3 hours. Selena spent most of it staring out the window, watching the forest give way to farmland, then suburbs, then city lights. They didn't take her back to Chicago. They went north, into the countryside beyond the urban sprawl, where old money built estates the size of small towns. By the time they turned off the main road onto a private drive flanked by iron gates and security cameras, it was fully dark. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a magazine spread. 3 stories of stone and glass, lit from within by golden light. Manicured gardens stretched out in every direction, dotted with fountains and sculptures. There was a separate building off to one side that might have been a garage or guest house. Guards patrolled the grounds, visible as silhouettes moving between spotlights. It was beautiful. It was a prison. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Marcus opened her door, pulled her out. Selena's legs barely held her weight. Everything hurt. Her face, her wrists, her chest where fear had carved out a permanent hollow. Damian was already out of the car, walking toward the entrance. He didn't look back, didn't check to see if she was following. He knew she had nowhere else to go. Inside, the estate was exactly what Selena expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, furniture that probably cost more than her father had made in a year. It was all very tasteful, very elegant, very much designed to remind you that the person who lived here had power and wealth beyond your comprehension. Damian stopped in the foyer, finally turning to face her. "Marcus will show you to your room," he said. "There are clothes in the closet, food in the kitchen. If you need anything else, ask the staff." "My room?" Selena's voice sounded strange, distant. "Not yours." Something flickered across Damian's face. "Not yet." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not an animal." He loosened his tie, the first casual gesture she'd seen him make. "You're my wife legally. That doesn't mean I'm going to force myself on you." Selena laughed. It came out harsh and broken. "You forced me to marry you." "Different circumstances." "How is that different?" Damian looked at her for a long moment. "Because I want you to want this eventually, and that requires patience." The words sent ice down Selena's spine. "I'll never want this. We'll see." He turned away, heading toward a hallway that probably led to his office or bedroom or wherever men like him went to plan their next atrocity. "Get some rest. We have a lot to discuss tomorrow." Then he was gone, leaving Selena standing in the foyer with Marcus, her body wrapped in a blood-stained wedding dress, her life completely destroyed. Marcus cleared his throat. "This way, Mrs. Vale." Mrs. Vale. The name made her want to vomit. But she followed him anyway, because what other choice did she have? The room they gave her was bigger than her entire apartment back in Chicago. King-sized bed with silk sheets. Walk-in closet filled with clothes in exactly her size, everything from casual wear to formal gowns. Ensuite bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the gardens and the forest beyond. There were bars on the windows. Elegant bars, decorative bars, the kind you might not notice at first glance. But bars nonetheless. Selena stood in the middle of the room, still wearing the wedding dress, and felt something inside her finally break. She sank to the floor back against the bed and buried her face in her hands. She didn't cry, couldn't cry. The tears wouldn't come. Instead, she just sat there, breathing in and out, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 6 hours. Kidnapped, forced to marry a murderer, locked in a gilded cage. Her father was dead. Her life was over. And Damian Vale, the man who'd orchestrated all of it, who'd admitted to murdering her father without a shred of remorse, was somewhere in this massive house, probably sleeping peacefully, while Selena's entire world collapsed around her. She hated him. God, she hated him with an intensity that burned through the numbness, sharp and vital and clarifying. She was going to survive this. She was going to find a way out. And when she did, she was going to make Damian Vale regret ever learning her name. But first, she needed to understand what she was dealing with. Selena forced herself to stand, forced herself to strip off the wedding dress and leave it in a heap on the floor. She found pajamas in the closet, silk, expensive, perfectly her size in a way that made her skin crawl because it meant he'd been planning this, preparing for this. How long had he been watching her? She pushed the thought away and went to the window. The bars were solid. No way to remove them without tools. Below, guards patrolled in pairs, moving with military precision. Security cameras were visible mounted on the exterior walls, covering every angle. Selena turned away from the window and surveyed the rest of the room. The door had a lock, but she was willing to bet it could be opened from outside. There was probably a camera hidden somewhere, watching her. Maybe in the smoke detector, maybe in the vent. She was being observed, controlled. Every moment accounted for. Damian had said he wanted her to want this eventually. The arrogance of that statement was breathtaking. But underneath the arrogance was something else, something that scared her more than the threats, more than the violence. Patience. He was willing to wait, to let her stew in this prison until she broke, until the isolation and the fear wore her down enough that she'd accept whatever scraps of affection he threw her way. Selena had seen that pattern before, recognized it from the shelter where she'd volunteered in college, from the stories the women there had told about partners who isolated them, controlled them, made them dependent. This was the same thing, just dressed up in silk and diamonds, and she refused to let it work. She got into bed, pulled the covers up to her chin, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she'd start planning. Start looking for weaknesses. Start figuring out who in this house might be bribed or manipulated or scared into helping her. Tomorrow, she'd begin fighting back. But tonight she just lay in the darkness, listening to the sound of her own heartbeat, and tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in this house, Damian Vale was probably lying awake too, thinking about her. She must have fallen asleep eventually, because she woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and someone knocking on the door. Selena sat up, disoriented. For a moment she didn't remember where she was, and then it all came crashing back. The cemetery, the chapel, the wedding dress. Damian. "Mrs. Vale?" A woman's voice, hesitant. "May I come in?" Selena's first instinct was to say no, but she swallowed it down. "Yes." The door opened and a woman entered carrying a breakfast tray. She was middle-aged, Hispanic, wearing a simple black dress and white apron. Her eyes were kind but cautious, like someone used to walking on eggshells. "Good morning," she said quietly, setting the tray on the bedside table. "I'm Rosa. I manage the household staff. Mr. Vale asked me to bring you breakfast." Selena looked at the tray. Fruit, yogurt, toast, coffee. All perfectly arranged, all designed to look appealing. Her stomach growled despite everything. "Thank you," she said, because Rosa didn't look like someone who'd chosen to work for a monster. She looked like someone who needed the job. Rosa hesitated. "Is there anything else you need?" "A phone." "I'm sorry. Mr. Vale has instructed that you're not to have access to outside communication yet." "Yet?" "His word, not mine." Rosa wrung her hands. "I'm sure once you've settled in—" "I'm not settling in. I'm being held prisoner." Rosa's face crumpled. For a second, Selena thought she might cry. Then the woman composed herself, smoothing down her apron. "I can't help you," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I have a daughter. If I lose this job, I understand." Selena did. She wasn't going to drag Rosa into this. "Thank you for breakfast." Rosa fled. Selena stared at the closed door, then at the food. She should eat, should keep her strength up, but the sight of it made her nauseous. She forced herself to take a few bites of toast, to drink some coffee. Then she showered, scrubbing away the mud and blood and fear of yesterday until her skin was raw. In the closet, she found jeans and a plain black t-shirt. Simple clothes. Comfortable. She dressed quickly and then stood in the middle of the room, trying to decide what to do next. The decision was made for her when the door opened again. Marcus stood in the doorway, expressionless as always. "Mr. Vale wants to see you." "What if I don't want to see him?" That wasn't a request. Of course it wasn't. Selena followed Marcus through the estate, paying attention to every detail. The layout, the exits, the security measures. There were cameras everywhere, guards stationed at key points. The windows on the ground floor were barred just like the ones in her room. This wasn't just a house. It was a fortress. Marcus led her to a study on the second floor. He knocked once, then opened the door. Damian sat behind a massive desk, reading something on his laptop. He was dressed more casually today. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that probably cost more than Selena's entire wardrobe. He looked up when she entered, studied her for a moment, then gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit." Selena remained standing. "I prefer not to." "Suit yourself." Damian closed his laptop, leaned back in his chair. "How did you sleep?" "Terribly." "That will improve." "Will it? Or will I just get used to being a prisoner?" "You're not a prisoner." His tone was mild, conversational. "You're my wife." "I'm both." Damian inclined his head, conceding the point. For now. What do you want from me? I want you to understand your situation. He stood, walked around the desk. Selena forced herself not to back away. You're going to live here. You'll have everything you need. So clothes, food, entertainment. You can go anywhere on the estate grounds. You can speak to the staff. But you cannot leave. You cannot contact anyone outside. Those are the rules. And if I break them, then people die. He said it without inflection. You try to escape, I kill Rosa. You try to contact the police, I kill Rosa's daughter. You try to harm yourself, I kill both of them and find someone else to make you care about. Do you understand? Selena felt sick. You're a monster. Yes. No denial, no justification, just simple agreement. But I'm a monster who keeps his word. Follow the rules and everyone stays safe. Break them and people pay the price. Your choice. He was backing her into a corner, making her complicit in her own captivity, making it her responsibility to keep others safe. It was brilliant and horrible. Why me? The question escaped before Selena could stop it. If my father owed you money, why not just take the money? Why this? Damian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, quieter. Because I've wanted you for a very long time. The words sent chills down her spine. You don't even know me. I know everything about you. He started listing facts like he was reading from a file. Selena Marie Moretti, 26 years old, bachelor's degree in social work from DePaul University. Worked at 3 different nonprofits before budget cuts forced layoffs. Currently, formerly, unemployed. You volunteer at a women's shelter on weekends. You drink your coffee black with 2 sugars. You read mystery novels. You have a scar on your right knee from falling off a bike when you were 8. Selena's breath caught. How do you... I've been watching you for 3 years. The floor dropped out from under her. 3 years. He'd been watching her for 3 years and she'd never known, never suspected. That's insane, she whispered. That's obsession. Damian moved closer, close enough that she could see the details of his face, the faint lines around his eyes, the precise edge of his jaw, the absolute certainty in his gaze. Your father's debt gave me an excuse. But make no mistake, Selena, I would have found a way to make you mine eventually. This just made it easier. She couldn't process it, couldn't wrap her mind around the level of planning, of manipulation required to orchestrate all of this. You're sick, she said. Probably. He reached out and Selena flinched, but he just tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture almost tender. But I'm also the only thing standing between you and a much worse fate. Your father owed money to people besides me. They would have come for you eventually. This way, you're protected. Protected? She laughed, the sound bitter. You murdered my father. I saved you from a slow death. They would have sold you, broken you, used you until there was nothing left. This way you stay intact. This way you have a chance. A chance at what? Damian's hand dropped. At being happy. The statement was so absurd, so disconnected from reality, that Selena actually felt her brain stutter trying to process it. Happy, she repeated flatly. You think I can be happy here, with you, after everything you've done? Not yet. He turned away, walked back to his desk. But eventually, yes. I'm a patient man, Selena. I can wait. I'll never... You will. He sat down, picked up his laptop, dismissed her as easily as if she were a servant. Marcus will take you back to your room. Lunch will be served at noon. I expect you to join me. And if I refuse? Damian looked at her over the edge of his laptop. Then I'll have Marcus drag you to the dining room and tie you to the chair. Your choice. It wasn't a choice. None of this was a choice. Selena turned and walked out before he could see how badly she was shaking. But the next 3 days passed in a blur of controlled routine. Breakfast in her room. Forced lunches with Damian where he asked her questions about her life, her interests, her fears, treating the conversations like they were on some kind of grotesque date instead of her being his captive. Dinners in the formal dining room with him at the head of the table and her relegated to his right, expected to eat food she couldn't taste and make polite conversation with a man who'd destroyed her life. At night, alone in her room, Selena paced and planned and tried to find a way out that wouldn't get Rosa killed. There wasn't one. The estate was locked down tighter than a military base, every exit guarded, every window barred. Even if she managed to slip past the internal security, there were dogs patrolling the perimeter at night, trained to attack on command. And even if by some miracle she made it off the estate, where would she go? She had no money, no phone, no identification. Damian had made it clear he had connections everywhere: police, judges, politicians. She couldn't trust anyone. On the fourth night, Selena stood at her window staring out at the gardens and felt despair settle over her like a weight. She was trapped. Not just physically, but legally. The marriage certificate was real, signed, filed. In the eyes of the law, she belonged to Damian Vale. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said dully. The door opened, but it wasn't Rosa or Marcus. It was Damian. He stood in the doorway, still dressed in his work clothes, slacks and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked tired, she realized. There were shadows under his eyes she hadn't noticed before. "What do you want?" Selena asked. "To talk." "We talk every meal." "No, I talk. You stare at your plate and fantasize about stabbing me with your fork." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "I want to have an actual conversation." "About what?" "About why you're so determined to hate me." Selena barked out a laugh. "Are you serious right now? You kidnapped me, murdered my father, forced me to marry you, and you're asking why I hate you?" "I did those things for a reason." "What reason could possibly justify, 'I love you'?" The words hung in the air between them, absurd and terrible. Selena stared at him. "You're delusional." "Probably." Damian moved further into the room, stopping a few feet away from her. "But that doesn't make it less true. I've loved you since the first time I saw you, 3 years ago at that coffee shop on 4th Street. You were sitting by the window reading a book, and the sunlight was hitting your hair just right, and something in my chest—" He broke off, shaking his head. "It sounds insane when I say it out loud." "That's because it is insane." Selena's voice shook. "You don't love me. You don't even know me. You're obsessed with some fantasy version of me you built in your head. Maybe at first." He took another step closer. "But I've watched you for 3 years, Selena. Watched you volunteer at that shelter even when you were exhausted. Watched you help your father even when he was cruel to you. Watched you stay kind despite everything that tried to break you. I know who you are. And I know you're strong enough to survive this, to survive me." "Strong enough to survive?" Selena felt fury ignite in her chest. "You want to know what strength is? Strength is not forcing someone to love you. Strength is letting them go." "I can't." The admission came out rough, raw. "I tried. For 3 years I tried to walk away, to leave you alone, but I can't. You're in my head every minute of every day and I—" He stopped, jaw working. "I won't apologize for this. I won't pretend I regret it, but I will promise you that I will never hurt you." "You already did. I killed a man who was using you to pay his debts. I saved you from people who would have done worse. And yes, I took away your freedom, but I gave you safety, protection, a life where you never have to worry about money or danger or a life as your prisoner." Selena cut him off. "Don't try to dress this up as some kind of rescue. You wanted me. You took me. That's all this is." Damian's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You're right. I took you because I wanted you. But I'm keeping you because I need you. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm standing." They stared at each other, the tension so thick Selena could barely breathe. Then Damian turned away, heading for the door. He stopped with his hand on the knob, not looking back. "I know you're planning to escape," he said quietly. "I know you're looking for weaknesses, for ways out. You won't find any, but if you keep trying, if you keep fighting me on this, people will get hurt. Rosa, other staff members. Eventually I'll run out of leverage and I'll have to find other methods to keep you compliant. I don't want that, so please, just—" His voice cracked. "Just stop fighting and let me make this good for you." Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Selena stood frozen in place, heart pounding. He knew. He'd known all along that she was planning to escape, and he'd let her plan anyway, probably watching her on hidden cameras, waiting to see what she'd come up with. It was a game to him, or maybe it was a test. She sank down onto the bed, buried her face in her hands, And for the first time since this nightmare began, she let herself cry. Not because she was giving up, but because she'd just realized something terrifying. Damian Vale wasn't going to let her go. Not ever. And unless she found a way to kill him first, she was going to spend the rest of her life in this gilded cage, watching him slowly wear her down until the woman she used to be disappeared entirely. The thought should have filled her with despair. Instead, it filled her with cold, focused rage. If Damian wanted a war, she'd give him one. But she'd fight smart. She'd fight patient. She'd make him think she was breaking, that his precious obsession was working. And then, when he finally let his guard down, when he finally believed she was his, she'd strike. She'd find a way out. Or she'd die trying. 2 weeks passed like a slow bleed. Selena played her part. She ate breakfast with Damian without throwing dishes at his head. She answered his questions about her childhood, her dreams, her favorite movies, feeding him scraps of truth mixed with lies, giving him just enough to make him think he was winning. She stopped pacing her room at night where the cameras could see, stopped testing the locks, stopped asking Rosa about exits or guard rotations. She became docile, compliant, exactly what he wanted. And Damian ate it up like a starving man at a feast. He started spending more time with her. Breakfast turned into breakfast and lunch. Lunch turned into afternoon walks through the gardens with guards trailing 20 feet behind. He told her about his business, carefully edited versions that made him sound like a legitimate entrepreneur instead of a crime lord. He asked her opinion on things that didn't matter, like what color to repaint the east wing or which sculptor to commission for the fountain. He was courting her, wooing her, pretending this was a normal relationship instead of a hostage situation dressed up in expensive clothes. And Selena let him believe it was working. The truth was, she was studying him, learning his patterns, his routines, the way his jaw tightened when Marcus delivered bad news, the way his eyes tracked her movements even when he pretended not to be watching, the way he never, ever let his guard down completely. But everyone had weaknesses, even monsters. She just had to find his. On the 15th night, Damian knocked on her door after dinner. Selena had been sitting by the window reading one of the books from the estate's library, a thriller about a woman who killed her abusive husband and got away with it. She marked her place and set it aside. "Come in." He entered carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of wine. Expensive wine, judging by the label. He held up the bottle. "Thought you might want a drink." Selena raised an eyebrow. "Are you trying to get me drunk?" "I'm trying to have a conversation that doesn't feel like pulling teeth." He moved to the small sitting area by the window, set the glasses down on the table. "You've been—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Different these past few days." "Different how?" "Less hostile." "Maybe I'm tired of fighting a battle I can't win." Damian poured wine into both glasses, studying her face. "Or maybe you're planning something." Selena's heart kicked, but she kept her expression neutral. "Like what?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." He handed her a glass. "You're smart, Selena. Too smart to just give up. So either you're actually starting to accept this situation or you're playing me. I can't tell which." She took the wine, met his eyes over the rim. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I want this to be real." The admission came out rough, raw. "I want you to choose to be here, not just tolerate it, because you have no other option." Selena took a sip of wine. It was good, rich and smooth, probably worth more than she used to make in a month. "You can't force someone to choose you, Damian. That's not how choice works." "I know." He sat down across from her, forearms resting on his knees. "But I can create the conditions where you might, given enough time." "How much time?" "However long it takes." She studied him in the lamplight. He looked almost human like this, tired, uncertain, stripped of the cold precision he wore like armor during the day. For a moment, she could almost forget what he was, what he'd done. Almost. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Anything." "Why did you really kill my father?" Damian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "I told you, he was trying to cheat me." "That's not the whole truth." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he drained his wine glass and poured himself another. "Your father was more than just a debtor. He was an informant. working with federal investigators to build a case against me and several other families. He thought if he gave them enough information, they'd forgive his debts and put him in witness protection. Selena felt the floor tilt. That's not possible. My father was a gambling addict, not a... He was both. Damian's voice was flat. He'd been feeding the feds information for 8 months. Names, locations, financial records. He was trying to save himself by destroying me. So you killed him. So I killed him, Damian agreed, and buried the investigation with him. The agents he was working with had an unfortunate car accident 2 days later. No witnesses, no case, just another unsolved mystery. He said it so casually, like murder was just another business expense. Selena's hands were shaking. She set down her wine glass before she dropped it. You're a monster. We've established that. He leaned back in his chair, watching her. But here's what you need to understand, Selena. Your father wasn't trying to protect you. He was trying to save himself. When the feds offered him a deal, he didn't ask if you'd be included in witness protection. Didn't even mention you. He was going to disappear and leave you behind to deal with the consequences. You're lying. I have the transcripts of his meetings with the FBI. Would you like to read them? Selena couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, too hot. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to stop mourning a man who didn't deserve your grief. Damian stood, moved closer. Your father was weak, selfish. He would have sacrificed you to save himself without a second thought. I, at least, am keeping you safe. Safe? The word came out as a laugh. You call this safe? Safer than the alternative. His voice dropped. Do you know what happens to the family members of informants in my world? They disappear. Slowly. Painfully. As an example to others who might think about cooperating with law enforcement. Your father's betrayal marked you for death, Selena. The only reason you're still alive is because I claimed you first. The words hit her like fists. She stood abruptly, backing away from him. Get out! Selena! Get out! Her voice cracked. I don't care about your justifications. I don't care about your fucked up logic. You destroyed my life and you don't get to pretend it was for my own good. Damian stood there for a moment, jaw tight, hands clenched. Then he nodded once and walked to the door. He stopped at the threshold. I'm not asking you to thank me, but I am asking you to survive this. Because whether you believe it or not, I need you alive more than I need you grateful. Then he left. Selena waited until his footsteps faded before she let herself collapse. She sank to the floor, back against the bed, and tried to process what he'd told her. Her father had been an informant. Her father had betrayed the people he owed money to. Her father had been planning to abandon her. She wanted to call it a lie. Wanted to believe Damian was manipulating her, trying to isolate her further by destroying her last emotional anchor. But deep down, in this part of her that had always known her father was a coward, she believed him. Vincent Moretti had been selfish until the end, and that selfishness had gotten him killed and gotten her trapped in this nightmare. Selena pressed her palms against her eyes and tried not to scream. Yes. The next morning, Marcus came to her room earlier than usual. Mr. Vale wants you downstairs in 10 minutes, he said without preamble. Selena was still in her pajamas. Why? Didn't say. She got dressed quickly, jeans and a sweater, and followed Marcus through the estate. Instead of leading her to the dining room or study, he took her down a hallway she hadn't been in before, through a door that required a key card, and down a flight of stairs. They were going into the basement. Selena's pulse spiked. Where are we going? You'll see. The basement was nothing like the luxurious upper floors. Concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, the smell of mildew, and something else. Something metallic that made Selena's stomach turn. Marcus stopped in front of a heavy steel door, knocked twice. Come in. Damian's voice. Marcus opened the door and gestured for Selena to enter. She did slowly, and then stopped dead. It was an interrogation room. A single chair sat in the center, bolted to the floor. There was a drain in the concrete nearby, dark stains that could have been rust or blood, or both. Tools lined one wall, pliers, knives, things Selena didn't want to identify. And in the chair sat a man. He was young, maybe 19 or 20, with a swollen face and blood dripping from his nose. His hands were zip-tied behind the chair. He was shaking so hard the chair rattled. Damian stood off to the side, sleeves rolled up, looking at the kid with an expression of mild annoyance. "Selena," he said without looking at her. "Come here." She didn't move. "What is this?" "An object lesson." He finally turned to face her. "This is Tommy Reeves. 2 days ago, he broke into one of my warehouses and stole $40,000 worth of merchandise." The kid, Tommy, made a choked sound. "I didn't know it was yours. I swear. I thought—" "Shut up." Damian's voice was flat. Tommy shut up immediately, tears streaming down his face. Selena looked between them, horror dawning. "Why am I here?" "Because you need to understand what I do, who I am. No more illusions. No more pretending this is something it's not." Damian picked up a pair of pliers from the tool table. "Tommy here is going to be an example to others, and you're going to watch." "No." The word came out as a whisper. "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." Damian moved toward the chair. Tommy started thrashing, making desperate animal sounds. "This is my world, Selena. This is what it takes to maintain control, to keep people in line. If you're going to be my wife in more than just name, you need to see it." "Please," Tommy sobbed. "Please, I'm sorry. I'll pay it back. Damian grabbed the kid's hand, pulled out one finger. Tommy screamed. Selena closed her eyes. "Look at him," Damian commanded. She kept her eyes shut. "Selena, look at him, or I'll make it worse." She forced her eyes open, bile rising in her throat. Damian positioned the pliers around Tommy's index finger. "Last chance to understand who you married." Then he started to squeeze. "Stop!" Selena's voice rang out loud and desperate. "Stop, please, don't!" Damian paused, looked at her. "Why should I?" "Bapu." "Because he's a kid. Because $40,000 isn't worth destroying someone's life. Because—" She was shaking, words tumbling out. "Because you're better than this." Something flickered across Damian's face. "I'm not." "You could be." She took a step forward, hands raised like she was approaching a wild animal. "You could choose to be. Right now. Let him go, and I'll—" She stopped, swallowed. "I'll stop fighting you. I'll try to make this work. Just don't hurt him." Damian stared at her for a long moment. The pliers were still around Tommy's finger. The kid was hyperventilating, making sounds that weren't quite words. "You'll try," Damian repeated slowly. "Yes." "You'll stop planning to escape. Stop looking for ways out." "Yes." "And you'll mean it. This isn't a game, Selena. If you're lying to me, I'm not." She was, but she said it with enough conviction that she almost believed it herself. "Just let him go, please." Damian held her gaze for another 5 seconds. Then he released Tommy's hand and stepped back. "Get him out of here," he said to Marcus. Marcus moved forward, cutting the zip ties. Tommy collapsed immediately, scrambling away from the chair, from Damian, crawling toward the door on his hands and knees. "Tommy," Damian said quietly. The kid froze. "If I ever see you again, you die. Understand?" Tommy nodded frantically, and then Marcus was dragging him up, pulling him out of the room. Selena and Damian stood alone in the interrogation room, the silence broken only by the sound of water dripping somewhere in the pipes. "Why did you do that?" Selena asked finally. "To test you." Damian set the pliers down, turned to face her fully. "To see if you meant what you said last night, about being tired of fighting. You could have just asked. You would have lied." He moved closer. "But this, stepping in to protect someone, offering me something you didn't want to give, that was real. That told me something I needed to know." "What?" "That you're not broken yet. That there's still fight in you, still compassion." His hand came up, cupped her jaw. Selena flinched but didn't pull away. "Good. I don't want a broken wife. I want you intact, just pointed in the right direction." She couldn't speak. Couldn't process what had just happened, what she'd just agreed to. Damian's thumb brushed across her cheek. "You said you'd try. I'm going to hold you to that." Then he released her and walked out, leaving Selena standing in a room that smelled like blood and terror, wondering what exactly she'd just bargained away. Oops. After that day, something shifted. Damian started testing her boundaries in new ways. Not with violence, not directly, but with proximity. With touch. Small gestures that felt like the slow erosion of personal space, his hand on the small of her back during dinner, his fingers brushing hers when he passed her a book. Sitting just a little too close during their afternoon conversations, nothing she could explicitly object to, nothing that crossed the line into assault. But it was there, constant. A reminder that he was waiting, that eventually she'd have to follow through on the promise she'd made in that basement. Selena threw herself into observing everything: the guard rotations, the delivery schedules, the way Damian's phone would ring at odd hours and he'd disappear into his office for hours at a time, coming out looking grim. Business wasn't going well. She could tell from the tension in his shoulders, the way Marcus and the other men spoke in hushed tones when they thought she couldn't hear. One night, 3 weeks after the incident with Tommy, Selena woke to the sound of shouting. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, straining to hear. The voices were coming from downstairs. Male, angry. She got out of bed, moved to her door. It was locked from the outside like always, but she pressed her ear against it. Can't let this stand. The Salazar family thinks you're weak now, that you can be pushed. I'm aware of what they think. Damian's voice, cold and sharp. What I'm not aware of is why you're questioning my judgment. I'm not questioning, I'm just saying that. Then say it clearly, Marcus. Do you think I made a mistake letting that kid go? A pause. Yes. Because of Selena. Because she's making you soft. Word is spreading. First you take a wife out of nowhere, then you show mercy to some punk thief. People are starting to wonder if you're losing your edge. Let them wonder. Damian, Marcus's voice dropped. The Salazars are planning something. I'm hearing rumors about a move against your supply lines, maybe something bigger. You need to send a message that you're still in control. I am in control. Then prove it. Because right now, every family from here to New York thinks they can take a shot at you and survive. Silence. Then footsteps. Someone walking away. Selena backed away from the door, pulse racing. The Salazar family. Supply lines. A move against Damian. She filed the information away, not sure what to do with it yet, but knowing it was important. The next morning, Damian was different, colder, more distant. He barely spoke during breakfast, just read something on his phone with his jaw clenched so tight, Selena thought he might crack his teeth. Is everything okay? She asked carefully. He looked up, and for a second she saw something raw in his eyes. Rage, stress, fear, maybe, though she wasn't sure Damian Vale knew how to be afraid. No, he said bluntly, but it will be. Then he stood and left without another word. That night, Selena was in the library when she heard the cars. Multiple vehicles pulling up to the front entrance. Doors slamming. Voices. Too many voices. She moved to the window. Down below she could see a convoy of black SUVs, men in suits climbing out. And in the center of it all, a woman. She was stunning. Late 20s, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and a face that belonged on magazine covers. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than Selena's entire education, and she moved with the kind of confidence that made everyone around her look like background props. The woman said something to one of her men, then walked toward the front entrance like she owned the place. Selena's door opened. Marcus stood there, expression unreadable. Mr. Vale wants you in the study. Now. Who is that? Vivian Salazar. Marcus's tone was flat. And you're about to find out why that's a problem. Selena followed him through the estate, mind racing. The Salazars, the family Marcus had mentioned last night. The ones who thought Damian was weak. They were here, in his house. Marcus led her to the study and opened the door. Inside, Damian sat behind his desk, perfectly composed. Standing in front of the desk, drink in hand, was Vivian Salazar. She turned when Selena entered, and her eyes lit up with something that might have been amusement or malice or both. So this is the famous wife, Vivian said. Her voice was silk over steel. The reason Damian Vale, the most feared man in Chicago, suddenly grew a conscience. Selena looked at Damian. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat. Vivian moved to lean against the desk, studying Selena like she was examining livestock. She's pretty, Vivian said to Damian, ignoring Selena completely. I'll give you that, but pretty doesn't seem like your type. You usually prefer women who understand the business. Vivian, Damian's voice held a warning. Say what you came to say. What I came to say is that you're making mistakes. Vivian took a sip of her drink. First, you pull out of the Martinez deal. Then you let that thief walk. Now you're turning down perfectly good opportunities because they're too risky. That's not the Damian Vale I've known for 10 years. Things change. Yes, they do. And the question everyone is asking is whether you're changing for the better or whether you're getting weak. Vivian's eyes slid to Selena. Personally, I think it's the latter. I think you've let a pretty face distract you from what matters. Careful, Damian said softly. Or what? You'll what, Damian? Kill me? Vivian laughed. We both know you can't. My family is too powerful, too connected. You touch me and you start a war you can't win. I've won wars before. Not like this one. Vivian set down her glass, straightened. I'm here as a courtesy. To warn you that if you don't get your house in order, if you don't prove you're still the same ruthless bastard you were 6 months ago, then the other families are going to start picking you apart, and I won't stop them. Damian stood slowly. Get out of my house. Gladly. Vivian walked toward the door, then paused next to Selena's chair. She leaned down, voice dropping to a whisper only Selena could hear. He killed your father, you know. Did he tell you that? Vincent Moretti. Damian put the bullet in his head personally. Selena's blood turned to ice. Vivian smiled, patted her shoulder. Just thought you should know what kind of man you married. Then she was gone, heels clicking down the hallway, leaving Selena and Damian alone in the suddenly suffocating study. Selena couldn't move, couldn't think. The words kept echoing in her head. Bullet in his head. Personally. Selena, Damian started. You said it was a car accident. Her voice sounded strange, distant. Brake failure. That was the cover story. You shot him. Damian moved around the desk. Selena stood abruptly, backing away. Don't touch me. Let me explain. You shot my father in the head, and then you lied to me about it. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand. You looked me in the eye and lied. I didn't lie. I told you I killed him. I just didn't specify. How? The word came out as a scream. How did you do it? Damian's jaw tightened. He was in his car. I got in the passenger seat. He begged for 5 minutes, and then I put a gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. Then I staged the accident to cover it up. Is that what you wanted to hear? Selena thought she might vomit. Her father, terrified in those final moments, begging for his life while Damian sat there cold and unmoved, and why? The question came out broken. Why tell me it was an accident if you were just going to admit to murder anyway? Because there's a difference between knowing someone is dead and knowing exactly how they died. Damian's voice was quiet. I was trying to spare you the details. Spare me? She laughed, high and hysterical. You don't get to spare me anything. You don't get to protect me from truths you created. Selena, I hate you. The words came out vicious, final. I will always hate you, and the first chance I get, I'm going to kill you the same way you killed him. Damian's expression didn't change. Noted. Then he walked past her, out of the study, leaving her standing there shaking with rage and grief, and a terror so complete she couldn't see past it. That night, Selena didn't sleep. She paced her room, mind spinning, trying to figure out what to do with the information Vivian had given her. Not just about her father, she'd already suspected Damian had killed him personally, but about the other families, about Damian being vulnerable. If the Salazars thought he was weak, if they were planning something, maybe that was her chance. Maybe she could use that. She spent the next week watching, waiting. Damian was distracted, constantly on the phone or in meetings with Marcus and other men who came and went at strange hours. Security around the estate had doubled. Everyone was on edge. Something was coming. Selena could feel it in the air, tension building like static before a storm. On the 8th day, it broke. Selena was in the garden when she heard the first explosion. The sound was massive, earth-shaking. She spun around just in time to see a ball of fire bloom from the west wing of the estate, glass and debris showering outward. Alarms started blaring. Men were shouting. Gunfire erupted from somewhere near the front gate. They were under attack. Selena stood frozen for one precious second, and then training she didn't know she had kicked in. She ran, not toward the house, toward the tree line at the edge of the property. If the estate was under siege, if the security was compromised, this might be her only chance to escape. She'd made it halfway across the lawn when someone grabbed her arm. She spun, ready to fight, and found herself looking at one of Damian's guards. The man was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, eyes wild. "Inside," he barked. "Now, Mr. Vale's orders." "I'm not—" Another explosion, closer this time. The guard didn't wait for her to finish. He just dragged her bodily toward the house, through a side entrance, into chaos. The interior was pandemonium. Guards running in every direction, smoke pouring from somewhere upstairs. The sound of gunfire was constant now, a staccato rhythm that made Selena's ears ring. The guard pulled her through the maze of hallways, finally stopping outside a reinforced door she'd never seen before. He punched in a code and shoved her inside. It was a panic room. Concrete walls. No windows. Emergency supplies stacked against one wall. A bank of security monitors showing feeds from all over the estate. And in the center of it all, bleeding from his shoulder and his side, was Damian. He looked up when she entered, and for the first time since she'd met him, Selena saw actual emotion on his face. Relief. "Thank God," he said roughly. "I thought—" He stopped, swaying slightly. There was too much blood. Way too much blood. "You're shot," Selena said stupidly. "Twice." Damian gestured toward the monitors. "Salazar's. Full assault. 20 men, maybe more." Selena looked at the screens. The estate was burning. Bodies littered the grounds. Men in tactical gear were moving through the house systematically, clearing rooms, executing anyone they found. "Your men?" she asked. "Holding them off." Damian sat down heavily, pressing his hand against the wound in his side. "For now." Another guard burst into the room. "Sir, they've breached the main floor. We need to evacuate." An explosion cut him off. The lights flickered, died, came back on emergency power. The guard swore. "They're going to find us." "Then we fight." Damian looked at Selena. His face was pale, slicked with sweat. "There's a gun in the cabinet over there. Get it." She didn't move. "Selena." His voice was sharp despite the pain. "Get the gun." "Why should I?" The words came out cold. "This is what you deserve. This is karma." Damian stared at her, and something in his expression cracked. "You're right. I deserve this. But those men out there, if they get to you, they won't kill you quickly. They'll use you, break you, make an example out of you that everyone will remember. So you can stand there and let that happen, or you can pick up the fucking gun and fight to survive. Your choice." Selena looked at the monitors, at the men moving through the burning estate, at the bodies of guards she'd seen every day, now crumpled and lifeless. At Damian, bleeding and desperate and still somehow certain she'd help him. She should let him die, should let the Salazars tear him apart, should walk out of this room and throw herself on their mercy, explain she was a hostage, a victim, that Damian had forced her into this. But even as she thought it, she knew the truth. They wouldn't care. To the Salazars, she was just another piece of Damian's empire to destroy. She was already marked for death. The only question was whether she'd go down fighting. Selena crossed to the cabinet and pulled out the gun. It was heavy in her hands, real. She checked the magazine like her father had taught her years ago, when she was 12, and he'd decided she needed to know how to protect herself. It was loaded. Selena turned back to Damian, raised the weapon, and pointed it directly at his head. His eyes widened. "Selena!" "Shut up." Her voice was steady. Her hands weren't. "You killed my father. You destroyed my life. You trapped me here, and you made me watch you torture people, and you told me it was love." "Yes." No denial, no excuses. "I should kill you right now." "Yes." "Why aren't I?" Damian held her gaze. Blood was soaking through his shirt, dripping onto the floor. "Because you're not like me. Not yet. And I'll do everything in my power to keep you that way." Outside the panic room, something heavy slammed against the door. They were here. Selena looked at Damian, at the gun in her hand, at the door that wouldn't hold much longer. Then she lowered the weapon, turned, and aimed at the door instead. "If we survive this," she said quietly, "I'm gone, no matter what it takes." "Okay," Damian said. The door exploded inward, and Selena pulled the trigger. The first man through the door took Selena's bullet in the chest. He went down hard, armor cracking under the impact, and the men behind him scattered. Selena kept firing, not thinking, just pulling the trigger again and again until the magazine clicked empty and her ears were ringing from the confined space. Someone grabbed her from behind. She felt the gun ripped from her hands, felt herself being slammed face first into the concrete wall. Pain exploded through her skull. Blood filled her mouth where her teeth cut into her lip. "Got the girl," a voice shouted. Male, rough. "Vale's in here too, bleeding out." Hands wrenched her arms behind her back. Zip ties bit into her wrists. Someone grabbed her hair, yanked her head back, and she found herself staring into the face of a man whose eyes held nothing but cold professional focus. "Mrs. Vale," he said, and the title sounded like an insult. "You're coming with us." They dragged her out of the panic room. Selena tried to fight, tried to dig her heels in, but there were too many of them, and they were too strong. Behind her, she heard Damian shouting something, heard the wet sound of fists hitting flesh, heard him grunt in pain. Then they were in the hallway, and the smoke was so thick she couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Bodies everywhere, some in Damian's colors, some in black tactical gear. The air smelled like cordite and burning wood and copper. They hauled her through the burning estate, downstairs she didn't recognize, through a door that led to some kind of service tunnel. The sounds of fighting faded behind them. The tunnel was dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast everything in red. Selena's mind was racing. This was an escape. This was exactly what she'd wanted for weeks. These men were taking her away from Damian, away from the prison, away from everything. So why did it feel wrong? The tunnel opened into what looked like an underground garage. 3 black SUVs waited with engines running. They threw Selena into the back of the middle vehicle, and 2 men climbed in on either side of her. The doors slammed. The convoy started moving. Selena tried to catch her breath, tried to think. "Where are you taking me?" The man on her left, the one who'd grabbed her in the panic room, pulled out a knife. Selena flinched, but he just cut the zip ties off her wrists. "Relax," he said. "We're the good guys. Good guys don't usually burn down houses. Good guys do what's necessary to end bad situations." He leaned back, studying her. "You're Selena Moretti, kidnapped 3 weeks ago by Damian Vale, forced into marriage, held hostage." It wasn't a question, but Selena nodded anyway. "We've been planning this extraction for 2 weeks," the man continued. "Ever since we confirmed you were being held against your will. The assault was a cover to get you out." Selena's head was spinning. "Who are you?" "Private contractors, working for someone who has a vested interest in seeing Damian Vale destroyed." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folder. "Someone who wants to help you." He handed her the folder. Selena opened it with shaking hands. Inside were photographs, documents, bank statements showing accounts in her name with balances that made her stomach drop, property deeds, corporate registrations. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your inheritance," the man said. "From your father." He didn't just owe money, Mrs. Vale. He was one of the architects of the entire criminal financial system in this region. He built the money laundering networks, the offshore accounts, the shell corporations, and before he died, he made sure it all went to you. Selena stared at the numbers. $300 million, spread across dozens of accounts, hidden behind layers of legal protection. "This is insane," she said. "My father was broke. He lived in a shitty apartment and drove a car that barely ran." "That's what he wanted everyone to think." The man pulled out another document. Vincent Moretti was playing both sides, working for Damian Vale while secretly building his own empire. When the feds approached him, he used that investigation as cover to transfer everything into your name, made it look like he was cooperating when really he was protecting his assets. Why would he do that? Because he knew Damian would kill him eventually. This was his insurance policy, his way of making sure you'd be taken care of. Selena's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the folder. "I don't understand. If my father left me all this money, why did Damian say I inherited debt?" "Because Damian didn't know about the accounts. Your father hid them too well. It wasn't until after the forced marriage that our employer discovered the truth." "Who is your employer?" The man smiled. "You'll meet her soon." The convoy pulled up to a building Selena didn't recognize. Modern, glass and steel. Expensive. They escorted her inside through a lobby that was all marble and minimalist furniture, up an elevator that required a keycard. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment, and standing in the middle of the room, drink in hand, was Vivian Salazar. Selena stopped dead. "What?" "Hello, Selena," Vivian said warmly, like they were old friends. "Welcome. Please sit. We have so much to discuss." Selena didn't move. "You attacked the estate." "I liberated you from the estate." Vivian gestured to a white leather couch. "There's a difference. You killed people. I killed Damian's people. Men who chose to work for a monster. Don't waste your sympathy on them." Vivian moved closer, and Selena could smell her perfume, something floral and expensive. "You're free now. That's what matters." "Free." Selena looked around the penthouse, at the guards stationed by the door, at the way the elevator required a keycard to operate. "This doesn't look like freedom." "It's protection," Vivian corrected. "Damian isn't dead. Wounded badly, yes, but alive. And the moment he recovers enough to move, he's going to come looking for you. This apartment is secure, untraceable. He'll never find you here." Selena's heart kicked. "He's alive?" "Unfortunately." Vivian took a sip of her drink. "My men were under orders to capture him, but he fought his way out. Killed 3 of my best operatives in the process despite bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds. The man is harder to kill than a cockroach." Selena should have felt relief. Should have felt vindicated that Damian was suffering, that he'd been hurt, that his empire was burning. Instead, she felt something that might have been worry. She crushed it immediately. "What do you want from me?" Selena asked. "I want to help you." Vivian set down her glass, pulled out a tablet. "I've had my lawyers prepare divorce papers. Sign them, and you're legally free of Damian Vale. No more Mrs. Vale. Just Selena Moretti, with $300 million and the rest of her life ahead of her." She held out the tablet. There was a document on the screen, legal text Selena couldn't focus on. "I don't understand," Selena said slowly. "Why are you doing this? What do you get out of it?" "Revenge." Vivian's smile was sharp. "Damian Vale has been a thorn in my family's side for years. He controls territories we want, supply lines we need, but he's always been too strong, too well protected to touch directly. Then he made a mistake. He got obsessed with you, and obsession makes people vulnerable. So this is about hurting him. This is about destroying him." Vivian's eyes glittered. "Without you, Damian loses the one thing he actually cares about. He'll come unraveled, make mistakes, and when he does, my family will be there to take everything he's built." Selena looked at the tablet, at the divorce papers that would legally end the nightmare. It should have been an easy choice. "What if I don't sign?" she asked. Vivian's expression hardened. "Then you're choosing to remain his prisoner, and I can't protect someone who doesn't want to be saved. That's not what I meant." Selena's mind was racing. "You said my father left me $300 million. That money? It's mine? Legally?" "Yes. The accounts are in your name. Fully accessible once we get you the credentials." "And if I wanted to use that money to—" Selena stopped, not sure how to phrase it. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "To what?" "To build something. My own organization, my own power base." Silence. Then Vivian started laughing. "You want to go into business?" "I want options." Selena's voice was steady now. "You're offering me freedom, but freedom without power is just being vulnerable in a different way. Every family in this city knows I was married to Damian Vale. They know I have access to his secrets, his contacts. The moment I walk away, I become a target. So you want protection." "I want to be untouchable." Vivian studied her for a long moment. "You're smarter than you look. Is that a yes?" "That's a maybe." Vivian picked up her drink again. "If you're serious about this, about actually entering this world instead of running from it, then we can talk. My family has resources, connections. We could use someone with your unique position." "What unique position?" "You were married to Damian Vale. You lived in his house. You saw his operations. You know things, Selena, things that could be very valuable to the right people." And there it was, the real reason Vivian had orchestrated the rescue, not to save Selena, to turn her into an asset. "You want me to give you information about Damian's business? Selena said flatly. I want you to help me dismantle his empire from the inside out. Vivian leaned forward. And in exchange, I'll give you everything you need to build your own. Money, protection, legitimacy. You could have the kind of power your father only dreamed of. Selena looked at the tablet again, at the divorce papers, at the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. Sign the papers, betray Damian's secrets, become Vivian's puppet, or refuse and… what? Go back to being a prisoner? Hope Damian survived long enough to reclaim her? The thought made her sick, but so did the idea of becoming the thing she hated. I need time to think, Selena said. You have 24 hours. Vivian stood, smoothed down her dress. After that, the offer expires, and Damian will have had time to regroup. The longer you wait, the more dangerous this becomes for everyone. She walked to the elevator, punched in the code. The doors opened. There are clothes in the bedroom, food in the kitchen. Don't try to leave. The guards have orders to keep you here for your own safety. Vivian stepped into the elevator. 24 hours, Selena. Choose wisely. The doors closed. Selena stood alone in the penthouse, surrounded by luxury that felt like another kind of prison, and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do. She didn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the panic room. Damian bleeding, the sound of gunfire, the weight of the gun in her hands. She'd shot people, killed them probably, to protect herself, to protect… She couldn't finish the thought. By morning, Selena had made a decision. Not a good one, maybe, but a decision nonetheless. She needed more information about her father's accounts, about what Vivian really wanted, about whether Damian was actually still alive or if Vivian had lied about that too. The guard stationed outside her door was young, maybe 25, with the kind of face that suggested he hadn't been doing this work long enough to get completely dead inside. I need to make a phone call, Selena said. No outside contact, he replied immediately. Boss's orders. Not outside. Inside, I need to talk to Vivian. He hesitated. I can relay a message. I need to talk to her directly about the offer. I have questions. That got his attention. He pulled out a radio, spoke into it quietly. A moment later, he nodded and gestured for Selena to follow him. They took the elevator down, but not to the lobby. To a sublevel Selena hadn't known existed. The doors opened into what looked like an operations center. Computers, monitors showing security feeds, maps covering the walls with pins and markers. And in the center of it all, standing over a table covered in photographs, was Vivian. She looked up when Selena entered. That was quick. I expected you to stew for at least 12 hours. I'm practical, Selena said. I want to see proof. Of what? Everything. The accounts, the documents. I want to verify this isn't some elaborate con. Vivian smiled. Smart girl. She gestured to one of her men. Show her. The man pulled up a laptop, opened a series of files, bank statements, transaction histories. Everything matched what Selena had seen in the folder. $300 million. In her name. How do I access these accounts? Selena asked. You can't. Not yet. Vivian circled the table. The accounts are protected by your father's security protocols, biometric locks, passwords. We've been trying to crack them for weeks. That's part of why we need you. I don't know the passwords. But you knew your father. You might be able to guess them or find clues in his personal effects. Vivian pulled out a phone, showed Selena a photo. It was the apartment where Selena and her father had lived. We have a team ready to search the place. With your help, we might actually find something useful. Selena stared at the photo. The apartment where she'd lived her whole life, where her father had paced at 3 a.m. muttering about debts and dangerous men, where he'd hidden $300 million and never told her. I want something in exchange, Selena said. Vivian raised an eyebrow. Besides your freedom and protection? I want to see the evidence. What evidence? You said my father was working with the feds, that he was an architect of the criminal financial system, that he orchestrated all of this. Selena's voice was steady. Prove it. Show me the transcripts, the recordings, whatever evidence you have that my father was more than just a gambling addict in over his head. Vivian studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded to another man who pulled out another laptop. He opened a folder labeled Moretti, Vincent, FBI Cooperation. Inside were transcripts, hours and hours of conversations. Selena started reading, and with every word, her world tilted further. Her father hadn't just been cooperating with the FBI, he'd been running circles around them, feeding them information while simultaneously building his own network, playing Damian and the feds against each other while positioning himself as the indispensable middleman. He'd been brilliant, ruthless, completely immoral, and he'd never said a word to Selena about any of it. She read until her eyes burned, read until she couldn't deny the truth anymore. Her father hadn't been a victim, he'd been a player, and everything Selena thought she knew about him was a lie. Satisfied? Vivian asked quietly. Selena closed the laptop. When do we search the apartment? Tonight. While Damian's people are still regrouping. Vivian moved closer. But first you need to sign the divorce papers. I need to know you're committed to this. Selena looked at her. If I sign, I'm officially choosing your side. Yes. And if Damian finds out, he'll kill you. Vivian didn't sugarcoat it. That's why we need to move fast. Destroy his empire before he can retaliate. Selena thought about the panic room, about Damian bleeding and still fighting to protect her, about the way he'd looked at her in that moment before the door exploded inward. Not like a prisoner, like someone he'd die for. She crushed that thought too. Give me the tablet, she said. Vivian did. Selena pulled up the divorce papers, read through them quickly. Standard legal language, dissolution of marriage, division of assets. There weren't any to divide. Damian kept everything. She just got her freedom. Selena signed. Her hand didn't shake until after it was done. They went to the apartment that night. 3 vehicles, a dozen guards, Vivian and Selena in the middle car. The building looked exactly the way Selena remembered. Worn brick, flickering lights in the stairwell, the smell of old cooking and mildew. It felt like a lifetime ago that she'd lived here. It had only been 3 weeks. The apartment door had been kicked in. Someone had searched it already, roughly, judging by the overturned furniture and emptied drawers. Damian's people, probably, looking for anything valuable in the immediate aftermath of Vincent's death. They'd missed what mattered. Selena moved through the space like a ghost. The couch where her father used to fall asleep watching television. The kitchen table where they'd eaten dinners in silence. The bedroom that had been his office, his refuge, his secret planning room. Where would he hide something? Vivian asked. Selena stood in the doorway of her father's bedroom, trying to think like him. Trying to remember the small tells, the habits he'd never explained. He used to sit at his desk for hours, writing in notebooks that Selena had assumed were bills or betting sheets. He'd been obsessive about them. Never let her see what was inside. She'd thought it was shame. Maybe it had been operational security. The desk, Selena said. He spent all his time there. They pulled the desk apart. Nothing in the drawers except old receipts and junk. Nothing taped underneath. Nothing behind the backing. Try the floorboards, one of Vivian's men suggested. They pulled up the boards beneath the desk. Nothing. Selena sat back on her heels, frustrated. He wouldn't have left it somewhere obvious. Then where? Vivian was losing patience. Selena looked around the room, at the walls covered in cheap paint, at the single window that overlooked an alley, at the ceiling with its water stains and… Wait, there was a crack in the ceiling, not from water damage, too straight, too deliberate. There, Selena pointed, that panel. One of the guards climbed onto the desk, pushed at the ceiling panel. It came loose immediately, revealing a hollow space above. He reached in and pulled out a metal box. It was locked, heavy, the kind of thing you'd use to protect documents from fire. Open it, Vivian ordered. The guard tried. The lock was solid, sophisticated. He pulled out tools, worked at it for 5 minutes before the mechanism finally gave. Inside the box were USB drives, notebooks, and a letter. The envelope had Selena's name on it. Her hand shook as she opened it. The letter was in her father's handwriting, cramped, urgent, written quickly. Selena, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Probably killed by Damian Vale, though it could be any number of people I've screwed over the years. I won't apologize. Everything I did to survive. To build something that would outlast me. To make sure you'd never have to live the way I did. Afraid, desperate, at someone else's mercy. The accounts are yours. $300 million, give or take. The credentials are on the USB drives, along with evidence of every major criminal operation in Chicago. Who's involved? Where the money flows? Who owes what to whom? Use it however you want. Build an empire. Buy your way out. Burn it all down. I don't care. Just know that once you access these accounts, everyone will know you have them. Damian, the Salazars, every family in the region. They'll come for you. They'll try to take it, try to use you. Don't let them. You're my daughter. You're stronger than you think. Smarter than I ever gave you credit for. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you any of this while I was alive. Sorry I had to let you believe I was just a pathetic addict. But I was never pathetic. And neither are you. Survive, Selena. Whatever it takes. Selena read the letter 3 times. Her father's last words to her. His final manipulation or his only honest moment. She couldn't tell which. What does it say? Vivian asked. Selena folded the letter, slipped it into her pocket. That the credentials are on the USB drives. Vivian grabbed one immediately, handed it to her tech specialist. Copy everything. I want it analyzed within the hour. They worked quickly, efficiently. Within 10 minutes, they'd copied all the drives and were packing up to leave. Selena stood in the apartment one last time, looking at the place that had been her home, her prison, her father's hiding spot for secrets that had gotten him killed. Let's go, Vivian said from the doorway. Selena turned to follow her, and froze. Standing in the hallway behind Vivian, blocking the exit, was Marcus. He wasn't alone. A dozen men in Damian's colors flanked him, weapons drawn. Vivian's hand went to her gun, but Marcus was faster. Don't! You're outnumbered and outgunned. How did you find us? Vivian's voice was ice. GPS tracker in Selena's clothes. Marcus's eyes found Selena. We've known where she was since you took her. Mr. Vale ordered us to wait until you led us somewhere useful. Selena's stomach dropped. The apartment. You wanted to know where my father kept his records. Smart girl. Marcus stepped forward. Vivian's men raised their weapons, but he ignored them, focused entirely on Selena. Mr. Vale wants to see you. He's alive? The question escaped before Selena could stop it. Barely. 2 bullets, massive blood loss, and he still refused to stay down until we confirmed you were safe. Marcus's expression was unreadable. He's at a secure location. You're coming with me. Like hell she is. Vivian pulled her gun fully now. She's under my protection. She was never under your protection. She was bait, and you took it. Marcus gestured and his men moved forward, surrounding Vivian's smaller team. Tell your people to stand down or this gets ugly. Vivian looked at Selena. Don't go with him. Once Damian has you back. He'll what? Hurt her? Marcus laughed, harsh and bitter. The man nearly died getting her out of that panic room. Killed 3 men with his bare hands while bleeding from gunshot wounds because he thought you might execute her. He's not going to hurt her. He's going to beg her to come home. The words hung in the air. Selena looked between Marcus and Vivian, at the 2 sides of a war she'd never asked to be part of. She thought about the letter in her pocket, about her father's final words. Survive, whatever it takes. She thought about Damian, wounded and desperate, still trying to control her even from whatever hospital bed they had him in. She thought about Vivian, cold and calculating, who'd only saved Selena to use her as a weapon against Damian. And she realized the horrible truth. Neither of them cared about her freedom. They only cared about what she represented, what she knew, what she could give them. She was never going to be free until both empires burned. I'll go, Selena said quietly. Selena, Vivian started. I'll go, Selena repeated, louder. But I keep the USB drives. Marcus frowned. Mr. Vale will want those. I'm sure he will, but he's not getting them. Not until we talk. Not until I understand exactly what's happening here. Selena's voice was steady now, hard. Tell Damian if he wants his wife back, he can negotiate for her, same as everyone else. Something like approval flickered across Marcus's face. Fair enough. Let's move. Vivian grabbed Selena's arm as she passed. You're making a mistake. He'll kill you. Maybe. Selena met her eyes. But at least I'll die on my own terms. Then she walked out of the apartment, away from Vivian's protection, and back into Damian's world, carrying $300 million worth of secrets and no idea if she'd survive the next 24 hours. Chats. They took her to a warehouse on the industrial edge of the city. Not the kind of place Selena expected. Not luxury, not security, just concrete and shadows and the smell of rust. Marcus led her through a maze of shipping containers to a door hidden behind a false wall. Beyond it was a medical facility, temporary but well-equipped. Monitors, IV stands, the steady beep of heart rate monitors, and in the center of it all, propped up in a hospital bed with tubes and wires running from his body, was Damian. He looked terrible, pale as death, bandages wrapped around his shoulder and torso, already seeping red, bruises covering every visible inch of skin, but his eyes were open, alert, tracking her movement the moment she entered. "Leave us," he said to Marcus. His voice was rough, damaged. "Sir, I don't think now." Marcus hesitated, then nodded and left. The door closed behind him with a heavy thunk. Selena and Damian stared at each other across the room. "You signed divorce papers," Damian said finally. Not a question. He knew. Of course he knew. "Yes." "So you chose Vivian." "I chose freedom." "Same thing." Damian tried to sit up straighter, winced, gave up. "She'll use you. Turn you into a weapon against me. That was always the plan." "I know. And you went along with it anyway." "I thought—" Selena stopped, swallowed. "I thought if I played along, if I gave her what she wanted, she'd actually let me go." "They never let you go, Selena. That's not how this world works." Damian's eyes were boring into her. "Once you're in until you're dead." "Then I'm already dead." The words came out flat. "My father dragged me into this before I even knew what was happening. You married me into it. Vivian tried to recruit me. Everyone wants to use me for something. So what does it matter? At least if I'm going to be used, I should get something out of it." "Like what?" Selena pulled the USB drives from her pocket, held them up. "Like $300 million and enough evidence to destroy every major criminal operation in Chicago." Damian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or respect. "Your father's files," he said. "My inheritance." Selena moved closer to the bed. "Turns out I'm not broke after all. Turns out I'm one of the richest people in this room. And I have information that could bring down you, Vivian, and everyone else who thought they could control me." "So what are you going to do? Sell it to the feds? Become an informant like your father?" "I haven't decided yet." Selena sat down in the chair next to his bed. She was tired. So goddamn tired. "First, I need to understand something." "What?" "Why did you let Marcus wait? Why not come for me immediately?" Damian was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, and it sounded like it hurt. "Because I wanted to see what you'd choose. If you'd actually run when given the chance, or if—" He stopped. "Or if what?" "Or if somewhere in these 3 weeks, you'd started to see this as home." Selena laughed. It came out broken. "This was never home. This was a cage. But you came back. Because Marcus gave me no choice." "He absolutely gave you a choice. He's loyal, but he's not stupid. If you'd refused, if you'd screamed for Vivian's men to protect you, he would have retreated. Damaging you wasn't worth the firefight." Damian's eyes held hers. "You chose to come back, Selena. Same as you chose to defend me in that panic room. Same as you chose to lower the gun instead of shooting me when you had the perfect chance." "I should have shot you." "Why didn't you?" Selena had no answer. Or rather, she had one but couldn't make herself say it. Because somewhere in the nightmare of the past 3 weeks, somewhere between the forced wedding and the interrogation room and the quiet conversations in the garden, something in her had shifted. She still hated him. But she didn't want him dead. And that terrified her more than anything else that had happened. "I need guarantees," she said instead of answering. "What kind?" "I keep the USB drives. I keep the money. And you don't touch me. Not romantically. Not sexually. Not in any way I don't explicitly consent to. If I stay here, if I come back to the estate, it's as your ally, your partner, not your prisoner." "Done." The answer came so fast it shocked her. "Just like that?" "Just like that." Damian closed his eyes, exhausted. "I'm tired of fighting you, Selena. I'm tired of pretending this can work if you're miserable. So yes, those are my terms too. You stay, we work together, and you have full autonomy." "Why would you agree to that?" "Because the alternative is losing you completely. And I'd rather have you hating me than not have you at all. He opened his eyes again, looked at her. I love you. I'm in love with you. I have been since the first time I saw you, and I will be until the day I die. But I can't force you to love me back. I can't manipulate you into it. So this is me surrendering. Stay or go. Your choice. Either way, I won't fight it anymore. Selena's chest felt tight. She couldn't breathe. That's not love. That's obsession. Probably both. He was fading, she could tell, the blood loss catching up to him. You should go. Figure out what you want. Marcus will keep you safe until you decide. What if I decide to leave? Then I'll let you. His voice was barely a whisper now. But I'll spend the rest of my life wishing you'd stayed. Then his eyes closed and he was unconscious, leaving Selena sitting alone in a makeshift medical facility, holding $300 million and no idea what the hell she was supposed to do with it. Outside the room, Marcus was waiting. He'll live? Selena asked. Doctors say yes. Touch and go for a while, but he's too stubborn to die. Marcus studied her. What are you going to do? I don't know. You could run. Take the money and disappear. Damian meant what he said. He won't chase you. And Vivian? Will absolutely chase you. The moment she realizes you're not under Damian's protection anymore, she'll come for those USB drives with everything she has. So running wasn't actually an option. Not unless Selena wanted to spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. What would you do? She asked Marcus. If you were me, Marcus was quiet for a moment. I'd burn both houses down. Use the information on those drives to destroy Vivian and anyone else who thought they could control you. Then I'd rebuild something new. Something that doesn't run on fear and violence. You think I could do that? I think you're Vincent Moretti's daughter, which means you're smart enough, ruthless enough, and connected enough to do whatever the hell you want. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think Damian's telling the truth about being done trying to control you. He knows he screwed up. That doesn't make it right, but it might make it survivable. Then he left, leaving Selena alone with her thoughts and her father's legacy and a choice that would define the rest of her life. She could run, could use the money to disappear, start over somewhere Damian and Vivian would never find her. Except she'd always be running, always be afraid, always be at someone else's mercy. Or she could stay, could use the information she had to build real power, to become someone no one would dare touch. But that meant becoming exactly what she'd feared, becoming a player in this world instead of a victim, becoming a monster. Selena looked at the USB drives in her hand, at her father's final gift, his final manipulation, his way of making sure she'd survive. Whatever it takes, he'd written. She'd thought she understood what that meant, but standing here, choosing between freedom and power, between running and fighting, between staying human and becoming something else entirely. Now she knew. Survival meant sacrifice, and the thing she'd have to sacrifice was the person she used to be. Selena pocketed the drives, stood, and walked to the door. Outside, Marcus was waiting with half a dozen guards. I need you to do something for me, Selena said. What? Get me a meeting with Vivian Salazar. Neutral ground, just her and me. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Why? Because before I decide anything, I need to hear her offer one more time, need to understand exactly what she's willing to give me. Selena's voice was steady, cold, and then I'm going to make a choice that will change everything. What choice? Selena smiled, and it felt like something breaking inside her, like the last piece of innocence finally shattering. I'm going to choose power, she said, and then I'm going to teach everyone in this city why it was a mistake to underestimate Vincent Moretti's daughter. The meeting was set for midnight at a shipping terminal on the waterfront. Neutral ground, Marcus had said, though Selena suspected there was no such thing as neutral ground in a war between crime families, just different shades of dangerous. She wore black, jeans, boots, a leather jacket that Marcus had given her with body armor sewn into the lining. The USB drives were in her pocket, a weight that felt heavier than physics should allow. In her other pocket was a gun, loaded, safety off. She'd checked it 3 times before leaving. You don't have to do this, Marcus said as they drove through the dark streets. We can turn around right now. Damian would understand. Would he? Marcus was quiet. They both knew the answer. Damian might understand, but he'd also see it as weakness, as Selena backing down from the only play that might actually end this war. The terminal came into view. Massive shipping containers stacked like metal mountains, cranes looming overhead like prehistoric skeletons. The water beyond was black, reflecting city lights that wavered like ghosts. 3 vehicles were already there. Vivian's convoy. Guards stationed at regular intervals, weapons visible. Marcus pulled up 50 feet away. His own men climbed out, forming a perimeter. The 2 sides faced each other across the asphalt, tension so thick Selena could taste it. Vivian stood in the center of it all. She'd changed since the warehouse. No longer the polished businesswoman. Now she wore tactical gear, hair pulled back tight, a gun holstered at her hip. She looked like what she was. A soldier. A killer dressed up in designer clothes. Selena walked forward. Marcus moved to follow, but she held up a hand. I go alone. Selena, alone. That was the deal. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stopped. Let her walk into the killing zone by herself. Vivian met her halfway, close enough to talk without shouting, close enough to see the calculation in each other's eyes. You have balls, Vivian said. I'll give you that. Calling this meeting after disappearing with Damian's people. I didn't disappear. I was extracted. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Vivian crossed her arms. You signed divorce papers. You took my protection. Then you ran back to the man who kidnapped you. So either you're playing both sides or you're stupider than I thought. I'm playing my own side. Selena pulled out the USB drives, held them up so Vivian could see. These contain everything my father compiled over 20 years. Every criminal operation in Chicago, every major player, financial records, blackmail material, evidence that could put half the organized crime families behind bars for life. Vivian's eyes locked onto the drives like a predator spotting prey. I know what they contain. That's why I want them. I'm sure you do, but here's the thing. Selena's voice was cold, steady. My father didn't compile this information to help anyone. He compiled it to protect himself, to have leverage, to make sure that anyone who came after him would bring down everyone else in the process. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. Selena pocketed the drives again. And now that leverage is mine, which means I can destroy you just as easily as I can destroy Damian. So before I decide who to ally with, I need to understand what you're really offering. I already told you. Freedom, money, power. Bullshit. Selena cut her off. You want to use me as a weapon against Damian. Once he's gone, once you've taken his territory and his networks, what happens to me? You think I'll just retire to some beach somewhere with my $300 million? Vivian's expression hardened. What are you implying? I'm implying that the moment I'm no longer useful, I become a liability. Someone who knows too much. Someone who could expose your operations the same way I exposed Damian's. Selena took a step closer. You'd kill me. Maybe not immediately. Maybe you'd wait a few months, make it look like an accident. But eventually, I'd end up dead. You're paranoid. I'm realistic. Selena's hand moved to her pocket, to the gun. My father taught me that much. Never trust anyone who promises you safety in exchange for information, because the information is the only thing keeping you alive. Vivian's hand dropped to her own weapon. Around them, guards on both sides tensed. Fingers moved to triggers. So what do you want? Vivian asked quietly, dangerously. Partnership. Real partnership. Not you using me, not me working for you. Equal power, equal control, equal say in how this organization runs. Vivian stared at her. Then she started laughing. You're insane. You've been in this world for 3 weeks, and you think you can walk in and demand equal partnership with someone who's been building power for a decade? I have $300 million in evidence that could destroy you. That buys me a seat at the table. It buys you a bullet in the head if you're not careful. Vivian's laughter died. Here's my counteroffer. You give me the drives. I give you $20 million and safe passage out of Chicago. You disappear, change your name, live whatever life you want somewhere far away from here. That's the best deal you're going to get. And if I refuse, then I kill you right here and take the drives off your corpse. Selena's heart was hammering, but she kept her expression neutral. You could try, but the moment your people open fire, Marcus's people return fire. You lose half your men, I die, and you still don't get the drives because I made copies, sent them to lawyers with instructions to release everything if I don't check in every 24 hours. It was a bluff. She hadn't made copies, hadn't had time, but Vivian didn't know that. You're lying, Vivian said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. Am I? You willing to bet your entire operation on that guess? They stood in silence. The wind off the water was cold, carrying the smell of rust and brine. In the distance, a ship's horn sounded, low, mournful. What's your real play here? Vivian asked finally. You didn't call this meeting just to negotiate partnership. You're not stupid enough to think I'd actually agree to that. You're right, I'm not. Selena pulled out the gun. Vivian's people raised their weapons immediately, but Selena didn't point it at anyone, just held it. I called this meeting to give you a choice. What choice? Walk away, right now. Pull your people out of Chicago, dissolve your claim on Damian's territories, and disappear. Do that, and I'll let you live. Keep the drives buried. Pretend this war never happened. Vivian's expression was pure disbelief. You're threatening me? I'm offering you survival. I could have you killed right now. Sniper's had you in his sights since you walked into the open. Then why haven't you given the order? Selena's voice was calm, too calm. Because you know the second I go down, those drives get released. Everything you've built, your family's empire, your legitimate businesses, your political connections, all of it burns. You might kill me, but you won't survive the aftermath. Vivian's hand tightened on her weapon. You really are Vincent Moretti's daughter. Yes, which means I know exactly how to destroy people who underestimate me. For a long moment, Vivian just stared, calculating, weighing options. Then she smiled, and it was the coldest thing Selena had ever seen. You made a mistake, Vivian said softly. Coming here, threatening me, thinking you could play in this world without consequences. What mistake? Believing Damian Vale would actually protect you. Vivian pulled out her phone, showed Selena a video. The image was grainy but clear enough. A warehouse. Guards. And in the center, tied to a chair with blood streaming down his face, was Damian. He was awake, alive, but barely. That's live footage, Vivian said. My people found his location 2 hours ago. Right now they're waiting for my signal. I say the word, they execute him. So here's my counteroffer. You give me the drives, and I let him live. Keep them, and I kill him while you watch. Selena's blood turned to ice. You're lying. He's supposed to be in a secure location. He was. Then one of Marcus's people turned out to be on my payroll. Vivian's smile widened. I told you. I've been building power for a decade. You think I don't have people everywhere? Selena couldn't breathe. She looked back at Marcus. He was on his phone, face going pale. He looked up, met her eyes, and shook his head. Damian's location had been compromised. You have 60 seconds, Vivian said. Give me the drives or watch him die. Selena's mind was racing. This was a trap. Had always been a trap. Vivian had never intended to negotiate. Had never intended to let Selena walk away. This entire meeting was about forcing her hand, forcing her to choose. The drives, or Damian. Power, or the man who destroyed her life and somehow become the only person she couldn't let die. 45 seconds, Vivian said. Vivian, Selena looked at the drives in her hand, at the evidence that could bring down every major criminal in Chicago, at the leverage that made her untouchable, at the only thing standing between her and a lifetime of being someone's target. She thought about her father's letter. Survive. Whatever it takes. She thought about Damian in that panic room, bleeding and desperate, fighting to keep her safe even when it meant sacrificing everything. She thought about who she'd been 3 weeks ago, a woman who'd believed in rules and systems, in the idea that good people could win if they just tried hard enough. That woman was dead. What stood in her place was something harder, colder, capable of making the kind of choice that would haunt her forever. 20 seconds, Vivian said. Selena raised the gun, not at Vivian, at the phone in her hand. Call them off, or I shoot that phone and you lose your only way to give the order. Vivian laughed. I have a radio backup. Then I'll shoot you. Then my people kill you and Damian both. Then everyone loses. They stared at each other, weapons drawn, both knowing that whatever happened next would define the rest of this war. Selena's finger tightened on the trigger. 10 seconds, Vivian said. And then Marcus's voice cut through the standoff, sharp and urgent. Movement! 3 vehicles incoming fast! Everyone spun. Headlights were cutting through the darkness, racing toward the terminal. Not police. Not random civilians. Someone else. The vehicles screeched to a stop and armed men poured out. Dozens of them. Military precision. They formed a perimeter around both Vivian's people and Marcus's people, weapons trained on everyone. And from the center vehicle stepped a woman Selena had never seen before. She was older, maybe 60. Gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a business suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. She moved like someone used to commanding respect, like someone who'd been doing this longer than anyone else in the terminal. "Vivian," the woman said calmly, "step away from the girl." Vivian's face went white. "Mother? Mother?" Selena's brain stuttered, trying to process. This was Vivian's mother, which meant this was the head of the Salazar family, the real power. "I said step away." The older woman's voice was iron. Vivian lowered her weapon, backed up 3 steps. The woman turned to Selena. "You must be Vincent Moretti's daughter. I'm Elena Salazar, and we need to talk." Selena kept her gun raised. "About what?" "About the fact that my daughter just violated direct orders by attempting to execute Damian Vale without family approval." Elena's eyes were cold. "And about the fact that you're holding leverage that affects every major operation in this region, including mine. So you're here to take the drives. I'm here to make a deal." Elena gestured, and her men moved forward, disarming both Vivian's people and Marcus's people with brutal efficiency. No one resisted. They couldn't. The Salazar matriarch had brought an army. Within 2 minutes, every weapon except Selena's was confiscated. Elena walked forward until she was standing directly in front of Selena. "Put the gun down. We're not going to hurt you." "Why should I believe that?" "Because if I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead." Elena's voice was matter-of-fact. "I have snipers positioned on every building overlooking this terminal. I have enough men here to turn this entire location into a war zone. But I'm not doing that because violence is expensive, and I prefer negotiations." "What kind of negotiations?" "The kind where you give me copies of those drives. I give you protection from every family in Chicago, and we all walk away from this without starting a war that nobody wins." Selena's grip on the gun didn't waver. "And Damian?" "I'm calling off the execution order right now." Elena pulled out her phone, spoke into it quietly. A moment later, she showed Selena the screen, the video feed from the warehouse. Guards were leaving, cutting Damian free. He collapsed, but he was alive. "He'll be returned to his people within the hour," Elena said, "along with compensation for this unsanctioned action." "Why?" Selena asked. "Why help him?" "Because, contrary to what my daughter believes, Damian Vale is useful. He controls territories I don't want to manage directly. He handles problems I don't have time for, and he's been remarkably stable for the past decade." Elena shot a look at Vivian. Killing him would create a power vacuum that benefits no one. "Better to keep the devil, you know." Vivian's face was twisted with rage. "He's weak. He's let this girl make him—" "Quiet." The word cracked like a whip. Vivian shut up immediately. Elena turned back to Selena. "My daughter made several mistakes tonight. Unauthorized military action, attempted assassination without approval, threatening you instead of recruiting you properly. I'm here to correct those mistakes. By taking what she couldn't, by offering you what she should have offered in the first place. Real partnership, not as an employee or an asset, but as an independent power with your own territory, your own resources, your own autonomy. You keep your father's money, you keep the drives, minus copies for insurance, and you get my family's protection. In exchange for what? Cooperation, information when we need it, support when we ask for it. Think of it as a treaty rather than employment." Selena looked at Vivian, at the fury and humiliation on her face, at the way Elena had completely undermined her daughter's authority. This was the real power. Not Vivian's ambition or Damian's brutality, but Elena's cold calculation, her ability to turn a potential massacre into a negotiation. "What happens to Vivian?" Selena asked. "That's family business, not yours." Elena's expression was unreadable. "Do we have a deal?" Selena's mind was spinning. This was an out, a real out. Protection from the Salazars. Damian alive, her money intact. The drives as insurance, everything she'd wanted, except it meant entering this world permanently. Becoming a player instead of a victim, accepting that there was no going back to normal life. I need to talk to Damian first, Selena said. Why? Because if I'm making this deal, I need to know where he stands. Need to know if he'll honor it or if he'll see it as betrayal. Elena considered this, then nodded. Fair enough. You have until dawn. After that, the offer expires. She gestured to her people. They began withdrawing, taking Vivian with them. Vivian looked back once, and the hatred in her eyes was pure poison. Selena had just made an enemy for life, but she'd also just saved Damian's life and secured her own position. The Salazar's convoy pulled out, leaving Selena and Marcus's people alone in the terminal. Marcus approached cautiously. That was insane. Which part? All of it? You just negotiated with Elena Salazar and survived. She wants the drives. Everyone wants the drives. That's not new. Marcus looked at her. What are you going to do? I'm going to see Damian, and then I'm going to make a choice that terrifies me. What choice? Selena looked at the USB drives in her hand, at the gun she was still holding, at the blood on her boots from walking through the terminal. I'm going to choose to stay, she said quietly. Not as his prisoner, not as his wife, but as his equal, his partner. Someone who can stand next to him in this world and not get destroyed by it. You sure that's what you want? No. The honesty surprised her, but I'm sure it's what I need to survive. And right now, that's enough. Was. They brought her to Damian 30 minutes later. He'd been moved to another secure location, an actual safe house this time, with medical equipment and guards who'd been vetted 3 times over. He was awake. Barely. The doctor had pumped him full of pain medication and antibiotics. The bandages had been changed. He looked marginally less like death. When Selena walked in, his eyes tracked her movement, focused, alert despite the drugs. You're alive, he said. His voice was hoarse. So are you. Elena's people cut me loose, said it was your doing. It was. Selena sat down in the chair next to his bed, the same position she'd been in before. Different room, same terrible circumstances. She wants the drives. Offered me protection in exchange for cooperation. You taking it? I don't know. That's why I'm here, to ask what happens if I do. Damian was quiet for a moment. To us, you mean? To whatever this is. Selena gestured between them. I signed divorce papers. I threatened you. I almost let Vivian kill you. And yet here I am asking your opinion on a deal that affects both of our futures. So I need to know. What are we? What do you want us to be? I want the truth. No manipulation, no games, just honesty. Damian's jaw tightened. He looked away, staring at the ceiling. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. I love you. I'm in love with you. I kidnapped you and forced you into marriage because I'm obsessed and damaged and I couldn't see any other way to have you. That makes me a monster. I know that. But it doesn't make the love less real. That's not love. Yes, it is. He looked at her. It's fucked up and wrong and probably something I should be in therapy for instead of acting on. But it's love. Twisted love. Dark love. Love that looks like violence because I don't know any other language. And I know you can't feel that way about me. I know you hate me. But I'm asking anyway. Please don't leave. Please stay and let me spend whatever time we have trying to be better, trying to earn something real. Selena's throat was tight. You killed my father. I know. You destroyed my life. I know. You made me into someone I don't recognize. I know. His hand moved toward hers, stopped just short of touching. And I'd undo all of it if I could, but I can't. So all I can do is ask for a chance to make the future less horrible than the past. Selena looked at his hand, at the space between them, at the choice she'd known she'd have to make since the moment she walked back into his world. She could leave, take Elena's deal, build power on her own. Or she could stay, take Elena's deal with Damian as her partner, build something together. Both options terrified her, but only one felt like it might lead somewhere she could live with. Selena reached out, closed the distance. let her fingers brush against his. "I don't love you," she said quietly. "I might never love you, but I don't want you dead. And I think maybe that's enough to start with." Damian's hand closed around hers, gentle, careful, like he was afraid she'd pull away. "That's enough," he whispered. "That's more than enough." They sat in silence, hands linked. Two people who'd destroyed each other trying to figure out if they could build something from the ruins. Outside, the sun was starting to rise, dawn breaking over Chicago, over a city about to learn that Vincent Moretti's daughter had just become one of the most dangerous players in the criminal underworld. "I'm taking Elena's deal," Selena said finally, "with modifications." "What modifications?" "You and I work together. Equal partnership. I handle the financial networks, the legitimate businesses, the political connections. You handle security, enforcement, the traditional operations. We pool our resources, support each other, but we don't interfere with each other's decisions unless absolutely necessary." "A treaty. A marriage that actually works." She squeezed his hand. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, you never lie to me again about anything, even if the truth is ugly." "Done." "Second, I have veto power on any operation that risks civilian casualties. I won't be part of unnecessary violence." "Agreed." "Third, if I ever say I want out, you let me go. No threats, no manipulation, no using people I care about as leverage. You just let me walk." Damian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Agreed. But I have a condition too." "What?" "Give me a chance. A real chance. Not to force you into anything, just to show you that what I feel is real, that I can be more than the monster who kidnapped you." Selena thought about it, about everything that had happened, about the man who'd murdered her father and the man who'd nearly died protecting her. They were the same person. And somehow, impossibly, she was starting to understand how that could be true. "One chance," she said. "You screw it up, I'm gone. Clear?" "Clear." "Then we have a deal." She stood, still holding his hand. "I'll call Elena, set up the meeting. We'll negotiate the terms together." "Selena." He stopped her before she could leave. "Thank you." "For what?" "For choosing to stay, for giving me a chance to be someone worth staying for." Selena looked at him, at the man who'd ruined her life and might somehow be part of saving it. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We still have to survive what comes next." "What comes next?" Selena smiled. It was sharp, cold. The smile of someone who'd learned to survive in the dark. "War," she said. "Vivian isn't going to forgive what happened tonight. Elena might have stopped her, but hatred like that doesn't just disappear. She'll come for us eventually, and when she does, we need to be ready." "Then we'll be ready." Damian's grip tightened on her hand. "Together." "Together," Selena echoed. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she actually believed it might be possible. The meeting with Elena happened 3 days later. Damian was still recovering, but insisted on being there. They met in a private room at one of Elena's legitimate businesses, a high-end restaurant that had been cleared for the occasion. Elena sat at the head of the table, Selena and Damian on one side, Elena's lawyers and advisors on the other. Vivian was notably absent. "Let's get to business," Elena said without preamble. "I've reviewed your proposed terms. Most are acceptable." "Most?" Selena asked. "The financial networks concern me. Your father built those systems to be opaque, difficult to trace. That made them useful, but also dangerous. I want transparency, regular audits, assurance that you're not using them to undermine my family's interests." "Acceptable." "In exchange, I want immunity from Salazar interference in my territories. Damian and I control the south side. You control the north. We don't cross those lines without explicit permission." Elena nodded. "Agreed. What about the drives?" "I keep the originals. You get copies with a delay. Anything I add to those files, you receive 90 days later. That gives me first-mover advantage on information, but ensures you're not blindsided." 90 days is too long. 30. 60. Final offer." Elena studied her, then smiled. "You negotiate like your father. That's either a compliment or a warning. I haven't decided which." "Both, probably." Selena leaned forward. "But here's what you need to understand. I'm not trying to replace you or challenge your authority. I'm trying to carve out a space where Damian and I can operate without constantly looking over our shoulders. We handle our territory, you handle yours, and we cooperate when it benefits us both. That's it. And Vivian? What about her? She violated my orders, embarrassed our family, forced my hand in front of other families. Elena's expression was cold. She's being dealt with, but I need to know you won't retaliate, that this incident is considered closed. Selena looked at Damian. He nodded almost imperceptibly. It's closed, Selena said, as long as she doesn't come after us again. She won't. I'm making sure of that. The way Elena said it made Selena wonder what exactly dealt with meant. But she didn't ask. Some things were better left unknown. They spent the next 2 hours hammering out details. Territories, resources, protocols for conflict resolution. It was exhausting and tedious and absolutely necessary. By the time they finished, the sun was setting. Elena stood, extended her hand. Welcome to the family business, Mrs. Vale. Selena shook it. It's Moretti. I'm keeping my father's name. Of course you are. Elena's smile was approving. Your father would be proud, or horrified. Possibly both. Definitely both. Elena left with her entourage. The restaurant emptied. Soon it was just Selena and Damian sitting in the aftermath of a deal that had just changed everything. We did it, Damian said quietly. We survived, Selena corrected. That's not the same as winning. It's close enough. He reached across the table, took her hand. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Your estate, my networks, everything Vivian destroyed. Selena's voice was steady, determined. And we make sure that next time someone comes for us, they regret it. Next time? There's always a next time in this world. You taught me that. She stood, pulling him up with her. Come on, let's go home. Home, Damian repeated, like he was testing the word. The estate. It's home now, for both of us. Selena started walking toward the exit. I'm going to rebuild it properly, make it into something that reflects who we are. Not a prison, not a fortress, something in between. What's in between a prison and a fortress? Selena stopped at the door, turned back to look at him. The man who'd kidnapped her and somehow become her partner. The monster who'd shown her how to be a monster herself. A kingdom, she said, and we're going to rule it together. Damian smiled. It was genuine this time, real. The smile of someone who'd finally found something worth fighting for. Then let's build a kingdom, he said. They walked out into the Chicago night, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Behind them, in the shadows of the restaurant, a figure watched them leave. Vivian Salazar stood at the window, phone in hand, watching the woman who'd destroyed her life walk away with the man she'd tried to kill. Her mother had ordered her to stand down, to accept the treaty, to let this go. But Vivian had never been good at following orders. She raised the phone, made a call. It's me, she said when someone answered. I need a favor, a big one, and I don't care what it costs. On the other end of the line, someone asked a question. Vivian smiled. It was vicious, unhinged, the smile of someone who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. I want Selena Moretti destroyed, she said, completely, utterly. I want her to watch everything she's built burn, and then I want her dead. She hung up, kept watching as Damian's car pulled away into the night. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, there would be no mercy, no negotiations, no treaties. Just blood and fire and the kind of violence that would make Chicago remember why the Salazar name inspired fear. Vivian turned away from the window. Time to burn it all down. The attack came 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning when the world felt almost normal. Selena was in the estate's study, reviewing financial reports when the first explosion tore through the east wing. The sound was massive, primal, the kind of noise that made your bones vibrate. She was on her feet before her brain finished processing what had happened, already reaching for the gun she now kept in her desk drawer. The second explosion followed 3 seconds later. West Wing this time. They were boxing them in. Selena ran for the door, nearly colliding with Marcus, who was sprinting down the hallway, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. Vivian, he gasped. 20 vehicles, military hardware. She's not here to negotiate. Where's Damian? North perimeter with half our men. They hit us during rotation change. She knew our schedule. Marcus grabbed her arm. started pulling her toward the reinforced corridor that led to the safe room. "We need to get you underground." "No." Selena yanked her arm free. "If we hide, she'll burn the whole place down with us inside. We need to fight. We're outnumbered 3-1. Then we fight smart." Selena's mind was racing. 6 weeks of rebuilding, 6 weeks of studying every defensive protocol, every security measure, every weakness in the estate's design. She knew this place now, knew it better than anyone except Damian, and she knew how to turn it into a trap. "Get everyone to the central hall," she said. "Pull back from the perimeter. Let them think they're winning." "That's insane." "That's the only play we have. Do it." Marcus stared at her for half a second, then nodded and spoke into his radio. Orders crackled out. Men started falling back, retreating from the outer defenses toward the center of the estate. Selena ran toward the control room. The estate's security system was sophisticated. Cameras, locks, automated defenses Damian had installed years ago but rarely used. She'd spent the past month learning every function, every override. She reached the control room just as another explosion rocked the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. On the monitors, she could see Vivian's forces advancing, systematic, professional. They were moving like a military unit, covering each other, clearing rooms with brutal efficiency. Selena's hands flew over the keyboard, sealing doors, rerouting them, creating bottlenecks, funneling Vivian's people exactly where she wanted them, toward the central hall where Marcus's men were waiting. On one monitor, she saw Damian. He was fighting his way back toward the main building, moving through smoke and gunfire with the kind of violence that would have terrified her 2 months ago. Now it just looked like survival. Their eyes met through the camera. He mouthed something she couldn't hear but understood anyway. "Stay alive." Then he was gone, disappearing into the chaos. Selena kept working, kept sealing doors, kept watching the monitors as Vivian's forces converged on the central hall exactly as planned. And then she triggered the lockdown. Every door in the central hall slammed shut simultaneously. Heavy steel barriers that could withstand explosives. Vivian's people were trapped inside, surrounded by Marcus's men who'd been waiting in concealed positions. The firefight that erupted was brutal. Selena watched on the monitors, stomach churning, as men killed each other in close quarters. Blood sprayed across marble floors. Bodies fell. The sound of gunfire was constant, deafening even through the thick walls. She wanted to look away. She forced herself to watch. This was her plan, her strategy. If people died because of it, she needed to witness it, needed to own the cost. The fight lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, 12 of Vivian's men were dead. 8 more surrendered. Marcus's people had taken casualties too, 3 dead, 5 wounded, but they'd held. Selena released the locks. Marcus's people secured the prisoners while medics rushed in. But Vivian herself wasn't among the captured. Selena scanned the other monitors, searching. Where was she? Vivian wouldn't have sent her people in without movement on the East Wing camera. A figure moving alone through the burning corridors, heading toward the residential section, heading toward Selena's location. Selena's blood turned cold. Vivian wasn't here for Damian's empire. She was here for Selena. Personal revenge, the kind that required looking someone in the eyes while you destroyed them. Selena grabbed her gun, checked the magazine, moved to the door. The hallway outside was filled with smoke. She could hear fighting in the distance, shouts and gunfire, but this corridor was empty. The lights flickered, emergency power struggling to keep up. She moved carefully, gun raised, every nerve screaming. Vivian stepped out from a side room 20 feet ahead. She was dressed in tactical gear, face streaked with soot, holding a gun that looked military grade. She'd been beautiful once. Now she just looked unhinged. Fury had carved lines into her face that made her look 10 years older. "There you are," Vivian said. Her voice was hoarse from smoke. "I was hoping we could do this face to face." Selena raised her weapon. "This is insane. Your mother gave orders." "My mother is weak, old. She's forgotten what it takes to hold power in this city." Vivian moved closer. "But I remember. And the first rule is that you don't let anyone disrespect the family name. You destroyed me in front of Elena, made me look like a fool, like I couldn't even control one frightened girl. I never wanted to be your enemy. But you are. You took everything I wanted, Damian's territory, my mother's approval, the respect I've spent a decade earning." Vivian's gun didn't waver. "So now I'm taking everything from you. starting with your life. Selena's finger tightened on the trigger. You shoot me. Marcus's people will kill you. You'll die here. I know. Vivian smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd already accepted death. But you'll be dead first, and that's enough. They stared at each other across 20 feet of smoke-filled hallway. Two women who'd been forced into a war neither of them wanted, who'd become exactly what this world required them to be. Monsters. I'm sorry, Selena said quietly. For what it's worth. I'm sorry it came to this. Save your apologies. Vivian's finger moved to the trigger. They won't stop the bullet. The shot came from behind Vivian. Her body jerked forward. Blood bloomed across her tactical vest. She stumbled, caught herself against the wall, turned. Damian stood at the end of the hallway, gun still raised, face covered in blood and soot. He looked like death itself. No one touches my wife, he said. Vivian raised her own gun, squeezed off 3 shots, wild, desperate. They went wide. Damian fired twice more. Both shots center mass. Vivian's body slammed back against the wall and then slid down, leaving a red smear on the expensive wallpaper. She was still alive. Barely. Gasping, drowning in her own blood. Selena lowered her gun, moved forward slowly. Vivian's eyes tracked her. Hateful. Fading. Bitch, she whispered. Blood bubbled at her lips. You think you won? No one won. Selena knelt down, close enough to see the light leaving Vivian's eyes. We all lost. That's how this works. My mother will kill you for this. Maybe. But you won't be there to see it. Vivian tried to say something else. Couldn't. Her body spasmed once, then went still. Selena stood, turned to find Damian watching her. Are you hurt? He asked. No, you. Nothing serious. He holstered his gun, moved to her. His hands cupped her face, checking for injuries even though she'd said she was fine. When I saw her on the monitors heading toward you, I thought, I know. Selena covered his hands with hers. I'm okay. We're okay. Around them, the estate was still burning, still echoing with gunfire. But the main assault was over. Vivian's people were either dead, captured, or retreating. They'd survived. The cost was going to be enormous. Rebuilding again. Dealing with Elena's fury when she learned her daughter was dead. Handling the power vacuum Vivian's death would create. But they'd survived. We need to go, Damian said. The East Wing is unstable. Whole section might collapse. Selena nodded. Let him lead her through the smoke toward the main entrance where Marcus was coordinating the aftermath. As they stepped outside into the cold morning air, Selena looked back at the burning estate. At the home she'd hated and then claimed and now would have to rebuild again. It's just a building, Damian said quietly, following her gaze. No, it's more than that. Selena watched flames lick through the windows of what had been her bedroom. It's proof that nothing in this world is permanent. Everything can burn. Everyone can be destroyed. The only thing that matters is whether you're willing to rebuild when it's over. Are you? Selena turned to look at him. At the man who'd kidnapped her and forced her into this life and somehow become the person she trusted most in this brutal world. Yes, she said, but differently this time. No more fortresses, no more prisons. We build something that looks like what we actually are. What are we? Survivors. Selena's voice was steady. Monsters who chose to be monsters together. That's honest, at least. Damian's jaw tightened. You deserve better than that. Maybe. But this is what I've got, so I'm going to make it work. She took his hand. We're going to make it work. Parchet. The fallout took 3 months to settle. Elena Salazar arrived in Chicago 2 days after the attack. Selena had expected fury, expected retaliation, expected to be executed for killing Elena's daughter. Instead, Elena had looked at the burned estate, at the body count, at the evidence that Vivian had violated direct orders by launching an unauthorized assault. And she'd said, My daughter was brilliant but unstable. I hoped she'd grow out of it. I was wrong. That was it. No tears. No rage. Just cold acceptance. Elena had honored the treaty, had even sent resources to help with rebuilding. But she'd also made it clear that this was the last favor. that any future violations would be answered with the full weight of the Salazar family. Selena had understood the message. They were on probation. One mistake and they were done. So they'd been careful, methodical, rebuilding not just the estate, but their entire organization. Selena had taken control of the financial networks, streamlining them, making them more efficient. She'd started moving money into legitimate businesses, real estate, tech startups, anything that could generate clean income, slowly laundering the criminal empire into something that looked respectable from the outside. Damian had handled security and enforcement, but he'd changed his approach. Less violence, more strategy, using fear and reputation instead of actual bloodshed wherever possible. It wasn't perfect. They still operated in a world built on crime, still made decisions that kept Selena awake at night. But it was better than it had been. The new estate was smaller, more modern, glass and steel instead of stone. It sat on the same property, but looked nothing like the fortress that had burned. It looked like a home. Selena stood in the garden 6 months after the attack, watching construction crews put finishing touches on the last wing. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and amber. She heard footsteps behind her, knew without looking who it was. "It's almost done," Damian said, coming to stand beside her. "Almost. Do you like it? It's better than the old one." She glanced at him. He'd healed from the attack. The physical wounds, anyway. The rest would take longer. "No bars on the windows this time." "No bars," he agreed. "You can leave whenever you want." "I know." They stood in silence. 6 months of working together. 6 months of learning to exist in the same space without the constant tension of captor and prisoner. It wasn't love. Selena still wasn't sure she could love him. Wasn't sure she should. But it was something. Partnership. Understanding. The bond that forms between people who've survived hell together. "I have something for you," Damian said. He pulled out a folder, handed it to her. Inside were documents, legal papers, divorce papers, official, signed by him, waiting for her signature. "What is this?" Selena asked. "Your freedom. Legal freedom." Damian's voice was careful. "The forced marriage was never valid. I had lawyers look into it. Coercion invalidates consent. So this is me making it official. You're not my wife. You never were. Not in any way that matters legally." Selena stared at the papers, at the thing she'd wanted desperately 2 months ago. The legal end to the nightmare. "Why now?" she asked. "Because I told you I'd let you go if you asked. You haven't asked, but you shouldn't have to. You should just have the option, free and clear." Selena looked at the divorce papers, at her name printed next to his, at the signature line waiting for her to end this officially. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, terrified, broken, dragged to a chapel in a blood-stained dress. She thought about who she was now, powerful, dangerous, someone who commanded respect in rooms full of criminals. She thought about what she'd lost and what she'd gained and whether any of it was worth the cost. "I'm not signing these," she said finally. Damian's head snapped toward her. "What?" "I'm not signing them. Not because I'm afraid. Not because I think you'll hurt me if I do, but because—" She struggled for words. "Because being your wife in this world means something. It means protection. It means legitimacy. It means I'm not just Vincent Moretti's daughter or some woman you're working with. I'm your equal, your partner. The legal status matters for that. Selena, you don't have to—" "I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to." She handed the papers back. "Keep these. Maybe someday I'll want them. But not today." Damian took the papers slowly. "You're sure?" "I'm sure I'm staying. I'm sure I want to keep building this, whatever this is. The rest?" She shrugged. "We'll figure it out as we go." Something like relief washed over Damian's face. He stepped closer, close enough that Selena could see the details. The scar on his jaw, the gray at his temples that hadn't been there 6 months ago, the way his eyes held more emotion than she'd ever seen in them. "I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "Don't deserve you giving me another chance. Probably not, but here we are anyway." Selena met his eyes. "You destroyed my life, Damian. Killed my father. Forced me into this world. I should hate you. Part of me still does, but another part—" She stopped, swallowed. "Another part understands that you saved me too. in the worst possible way. You made me strong enough to survive in a world that would have eaten me alive otherwise. That doesn't make what I did right. No, it doesn't, but it makes it survivable. She reached up, touched his face. The gesture felt strange, intimate in a way that weapons and violence had never been. I'm not asking you to be good. I'm not even asking you to stop being a criminal. I'm just asking you to keep being honest with me, to keep giving me choices instead of taking them away. Can you do that? Yes? No hesitation. I can do that. Then that's enough. Selena let her hand drop. For now, that's enough. Damian caught her hand before she could pull away completely, brought it to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. Thank you. For what? For choosing to stay, for not giving up on this, on us. Don't make me regret it, Selena said, but there was no venom in the words, just weariness, acceptance. I won't. I swear I won't. They stood in the garden as the sun finished setting, as the construction crews packed up for the night, as the new estate, their estate, stood behind them waiting to be filled with whatever life they decided to build. It wouldn't be a normal life. There would be danger, violence, difficult choices and sleepless nights and the constant weight of power. But it would be theirs, and maybe that was enough. Heck, 2 years later, Selena Moretti stood in a conference room overlooking Lake Michigan and watched Chicago's criminal underworld file in for a summit she'd organized. The room was impressive, all glass and polished wood, art on the walls worth more than most people made in a lifetime. This was a legitimate building, owned by a legitimate company that Selena had built from her father's hidden networks. On paper, she was a venture capitalist, a successful businesswoman who'd inherited money and turned it into an empire. The people in this room knew better. Elena Salazar entered first. Older now, using a cane but still commanding absolute authority. She nodded to Selena, took her seat at the table. The other families followed. Russo, Martinez, Chen. Every major player in the region, and at Selena's right hand, standing like a sentinel, was Damian. He'd changed too. Less brutal, more strategic. He'd transitioned most of his operations into legitimate security consulting. Private military contractors. The kind of work that was legal but still allowed him to operate in the shadows. Together, they'd built something unprecedented, a criminal empire that looked like a business empire. That made money through investments and corporate dealings instead of violence and drugs. They weren't saints. There was still blood on their hands, still decisions that kept Selena up at night. But they were better than they'd been, and that had to count for something. Thank you all for coming, Selena said once everyone was seated. I know this is unusual. We don't typically all meet in one room, but the landscape is changing. Federal pressure is increasing. Inter-family conflicts are getting expensive, and I think it's time we tried something different. What are you proposing? Elena asked. Cooperation. Real cooperation. Not just treaties that get violated the moment it's convenient, but an actual alliance, where we pool resources, share intelligence, and make decisions together instead of constantly fighting over territory. Russo laughed. That's naive. This isn't a business. You can't run organized crime like a corporation. Why not? Selena met his eyes. We're all trying to make money. We're all trying to avoid law enforcement. We're all trying to maintain power. Those are business objectives, so why not use business strategies? Because the moment we stop fighting, someone gets soft, gets weak, gets destroyed by whoever's still willing to be violent. Or, Damian interjected, the moment we stop fighting, we all get stronger. Violence is expensive. Wars cost money and lives. Cooperation means we can focus resources on actually building wealth instead of destroying each other's operations. The room was quiet, calculating. These were people who'd spent decades fighting for every scrap of power. Asking them to cooperate was asking them to violate every instinct, but they were also practical, and what Selena was proposing made economic sense. What's your stake in this? Chen asked. Why are you pushing for cooperation? Selena thought about how to answer, about the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become, about the choices that had brought her here. Because I'm tired, she said finally. Tired of war, tired of violence, tired of watching people die over territory and pride and grudges that should have been settled years ago. I want to build something that lasts, and that requires stability. Stability, Elena echoed. In our world, stability is an illusion. Maybe, but I'd rather chase an illusion than drown in chaos. Selena stood, moved to the window, looked out over Chicago, the city that had destroyed her and remade her and become hers in ways she'd never expected. My father spent 20 years building networks in this city. Then he died because he couldn't stop playing everyone against each other. I don't want to make the same mistake, so I'm offering you all a choice. We can keep fighting, keep bleeding, keep losing people and money and ground to federal investigations. Or we can try something new. She turned back to face them. Vote, right now, alliance or status quo, majority rules. The room erupted in debate, voices overlapping, some arguing for the alliance, others insisting it would never work. Selena let them talk. Let them fight it out. This was how democracy worked, even in a criminal empire. After 20 minutes, Elena called for order. Vote, show of hands. Who supports the alliance? Slowly, hands went up. Elena, Chen, Martinez, then Russo, reluctantly. Not unanimous, but close enough. Then it's decided, Elena said. We form an alliance. Selena Moretti will coordinate. Any violations will be brought to a council for judgment. All agreed? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Selena felt something in her chest loosen. Relief, exhaustion, pride. She'd done it. Had actually convinced Chicago's criminal families to try cooperation. It wouldn't last forever. Someone would betray the alliance eventually. Violence would return. But for now, for today, she'd bought them peace. The meeting adjourned. People filed out, shaking hands, making plans. Elena was the last to leave. She stopped in front of Selena, studied her with those calculating eyes. Your father would have hated this, Elena said. I know. He thrived on chaos, on pitting families against each other. This alliance undermines everything he built. Good. Selena's voice was firm. I'm not my father. I don't want his legacy. I want my own. Elena smiled. You already have it. Whether you realize it or not, you've become more powerful than Vincent ever was. Because people trust you. They believe you want stability instead of just personal gain. She paused. Don't let that trust turn into weakness. I won't. See that you don't. Elena tapped her cane against the floor once. I'm old, Selena. I won't be running the Salazar family much longer. When I'm gone, there will be a power struggle. My sons are ambitious, but not particularly bright. They might try to violate this alliance. What do you want me to do about that? Stop them. Whatever it takes. Elena's eyes were hard. I'm trusting you to maintain what we're building here. Even if it means going to war with my own family. Can you do that? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Impossible. Selena thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, about whether that woman could have made this choice. She couldn't, but the woman Selena had become could. Yes, she said. If it comes to that, I'll stop them. Elena nodded. Good. Then I'll die in peace knowing Chicago won't immediately collapse into chaos. She left without another word. Selena stood alone in the conference room, looking out over the city she'd learned to control. The city that had broken her and rebuilt her into something harder, something capable of making terrible choices for the greater good. Damian's reflection appeared in the glass behind her. You okay? I just promised Elena I'd go to war with her family if necessary. I know, I heard. That's insane. 2 years ago I was a social worker. Now I'm negotiating criminal alliances and threatening war. 2 years ago you were surviving. Damian moved closer. His hand came to rest on her shoulder. Now you're thriving. There's a difference. Is there? Selena turned to face him. Sometimes I wonder if I lost myself completely, if the woman I used to be is just gone. She's not gone. She's evolved. Damian's voice was gentle. You still care about people, still try to minimize violence, still want to build something better. That's the same woman, just stronger now, more capable, more dangerous. That too. He didn't deny it. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. Sometimes dangerous just means powerful enough to protect what matters. Selena looked at him, at the man who'd destroyed her life and then stood beside her while she rebuilt it into something new, something she actually wanted. Do you regret it? She asked. Kidnapping me, starting this whole nightmare. Damian was quiet for a long moment. I regret the pain I caused you, the fear, the loss. But do I regret that it led to this? To you standing here as one of the most powerful people in Chicago? To us actually being partners instead of enemies? He shook his head. No, I can't regret that. That's fucked up. I know, but it's honest. Selena laughed. It came out bitter and tired and somehow genuine. We're both fucked up. You know that, right? I know. Normal people don't negotiate criminal alliances. Normal people don't fall in love with their kidnappers. Damian went very still. Did you just say, don't make a thing out of it? Selena's cheeks flushed. I don't know if it's love. I don't know if I'm capable of loving someone like you, but it's something more than partnership, more than just convenience. What is it then? Selena struggled for words, for a way to explain the impossible tangle of emotions she felt when she looked at him. It's choosing you, she said finally. Every day, despite everything you've done, despite the nightmares and the anger and the part of me that still wants to hate you, I wake up and I choose to be here, choose to work with you, choose to build this life with you. Maybe that's love, maybe it's something else, but it's real. Damian's hand moved to cup her face. That's more than I ever thought I'd have, more than I deserve, way more than you deserve. But Selena leaned into the touch anyway. Don't screw it up. I won't. His forehead pressed against hers. I swear I won't. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who should have been enemies finding something like peace in each other. Then Selena pulled back, straightened her jacket, became the businesswoman again. Come on. We have dinner with the Martinez family tonight. Need to make sure this alliance actually holds. Always working. That's what power costs. Selena headed for the door. Every minute of every day, no rest, no peace, just constant vigilance. Is it worth it? Damian followed her. All of this, the power, the pressure, the choices that keep you up at night. Selena stopped at the elevator. Pressed the button. Watched the numbers climb as it rose toward them. Ask me in 10 years, she said. If we're still alive, still together, still building something that matters, then maybe I'll know if it was worth it. The elevator arrived. They stepped inside. As the doors closed, Selena caught her reflection in the polished steel. She looked older than her 28 years. Harder. The kind of woman who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The kind of woman who could survive in a world built on violence and lies. The kind of woman she had never thought she'd become. But as the elevator descended, as Damian's hand found hers and squeezed gently, Selena realized something important. She didn't hate who she'd become. It had cost her everything. Her father, her innocence, the simple life she'd thought she wanted, but it had given her something too. Power, purpose, partnership with someone who understood the darkness because he'd lived in it his whole life. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was the life she'd chosen. And that made all the difference. 5 years later, Selena stood in a garden ceremony surrounded by trusted allies and watched as a minister pronounced her and Damian married. Again. But this time there was no blood on her dress, no guns, no coercion, just choice. The ceremony was small, private. Marcus was there, older now, semi-retired but still loyal. Rosa, who'd stayed through everything. Elena Salazar, impossibly still alive, watching with approval. A handful of others who'd earned their place through years of loyalty. When the minister said she could kiss her husband, Selena leaned in and kissed Damian like she meant it. Because she did. It had taken 5 years. 5 years of working together. 5 years of learning to trust. 5 years of slowly letting go of the anger and fear and replacing it with something that looked like love. Not perfect love. Not innocent love. But real. When they pulled apart, when the small gathering applauded, Selena looked at the man who'd kidnapped her 7 years ago and saw not a monster, but a partner. Someone who'd be willing to burn the world down to keep her safe. Someone she'd do the same for. Mrs. Vale, Damian said softly. Again. Mrs. Moretti Vale, she corrected. I kept my name this time. Of course you did. He smiled. It was genuine, warm. The smile of someone who'd found something worth smiling about. Shall we greet our guests? Our guests are crime lords. Successful crime lords. There's a difference. Selena laughed. After everything, the violence, the fear, the impossible choices, she could still laugh, could still find moments of lightness in the darkness. They moved through the garden, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, building alliances through social rituals the same way they built them through business deals. This was their world now, and they'd learned to navigate it together. Later that night, alone in the rebuilt estate that had become their home, Selena stood at the window looking out over Chicago. The city lights sparkled like jewels, beautiful and deadly. Damian came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "That 7 years ago I would have done anything to escape this life. And now," she paused, "now I can't imagine living any other way." "Is that good or bad?" "I don't know. Both, maybe." She leaned back against him. "I became a monster to survive, but I became your monster, and somehow that makes it bearable." "We're both monsters," Damian said quietly, "but we're monsters who chose each other, who choose each other every day. That has to count for something." "It does." Selena turned in his arms, looked up at him. "It counts for everything." They stood in the window, two people who'd destroyed each other and rebuilt themselves into something new, something dangerous and powerful and impossibly functional. Outside, Chicago kept moving, kept living, kept being the city that ate the weak and made the strong into legends. And at the center of it all, in a glass estate overlooking the lake, Selena Moretti and Damian Vale ruled their empire together. Not as captor and prisoner, not as monster and victim, but as partners, equals. Two people who'd survived hell and decided to build heaven on its ashes. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was theirs. And after everything they'd been through, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.